Hey, everybody, and welcome back to your favorite media response show. This is X is for Show. I'm Nico, and you can catch me on this side of the screen, unusually, at Nico Action.
Jonah, introduce yourself because you're right there.
Oh, hi. I'm invading Nico's space and screen. But you can also follow me over places at Peak Jonah. That's P-E-A-K.
And I'm TK in my own screen, in my own home, in a galaxy far, far away. And you can follow me at TK Elemental.
And that makes me your producer, Kev O'Reilly. Am I in the same TARDIS? Am I in a different TARDIS? Who knows? We got plenty of exciting stuff to talk about with spoilers for this week's episode of Doctor Who, along with a lot of other really cool stuff to talk about this week. Very exciting.
It's all very TARDIS, TUDIS, Whodis.
Whodis, TARDIS.
So excited about it. It's been such an interesting journey seeing Doctor Who come to life on Disney Plus. One of the things that I think is really interesting about this 3-part mini-serial is it is a little bit like one day Russell T. Davies said, I'm going to write fan fiction of my own favorite era of my own work. I'm going to come up with my very own fanfiction.net reason it's okay. I'm going to bring in characters I love from other things. But can I just tell you, so few creators get to do that. It's like Chris Claremont coming back to X-Men. It's like all of these, Chris Carter kind of guys getting to come back to X-Files. And so then here we are. And one of the most phenomenal creators in the history of the Doctor is just back doing his own fan favorite shtick. I love it.
I'm really glad that you said Claremont because that's such a good frame of reference.
Thank you. Me too.
Primarily because it has not been good when Claremont comes back, and you can see the wheels are turning. I love X-Men The End for the fact that I can see what he wants to do, and I can see how he thought that was the thing the whole time. He was always gonna, if they let him go for 25, 30 years, he would have eventually gotten us to most of the stuff in X-Men The End organically the way his whole run did. X-Men The End fails because other people had to take over X-Men after Claremont and do other stuff that meant by the time he came back to tell his what would have happened in the future for them story, it makes no sense because the characters changed and other things changed. Davies got it, man. And part of it is that the Doctor is easily resettable at any, there's always sort of an expectation that he is always the same person and never at all the same person.
Always some sort of regeneration point, if you will.
Yeah, well, of course. Sorry, go ahead, Gabo.
No, and if anything, sort of refining that malleability. And one of the phrases, because I listened to the audio commentary for just the last special so far, but one of the things that he talked about was a lot of this was giving Doctor Who permission to be its full self in a way that a lot of writers sort of struggled to let it be more fanciful and really stretch the rules. And this was a lot about sort of reaching out and trying to do more.
And I think Davies has always been you might as well type of person, especially with Doctor Who. It's already Doctor Who. It's already very silly. And you can be serious amidst very silly, but you would be doing everybody a disservice not to also be very silly a lot of the time. I love the Smith era so much, and I think there is a lot of silliness there, I think Moffat sometimes takes himself a little too seriously and forgets to be actually silly, actually campy, he thinks that when the Doctor goes like this, that's silly, and that's just Matt Smith waving his arms around.
It's sort of the, it's like the intellectual's equivalent of straight guy fart humor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a really funny example of that, literally exactly that, is that there was a portion of the new opening credits that was going to be a little bit different, where it was going to feature David and Catherine flying in that beautiful rendered flying TARDIS, and Donna hanging out of it and the Doctor reaching for her. And they filmed that with both David and Catherine and Ncuti and the new companion to be able to continue that after they left. And Russell's the only one that liked it. And the person who convinced him was Stephen Moffat, who literally all he said was, cut it. And Russell was like, what? Well, why? Well, and cut it. Cut it. And like that to me very much is an example of where I think Stephen isn't really as silly, whereas Russell, was like having fun with it. I feel like we see a lot of promo pictures where we do stuff like that. There was a trailer for Series 5 that was essentially that same thing with the Doctor and Amy Pond. But I think some showrunners don't let them be themselves or let them be that way on the actual show.
Jonah, as like the guy who I think maybe technically has the least exposure to Doctor Who, but just as much a burning passion, how does the goofiness fit for you? Like, are you I'm looking at you in the image, but you're talking, I'm right here. You're right here, but you're there. See, it's the same. So how do you feel about the goofiness of Doctor Who and how that silliness carries us across time and space?
It should be silly and unserious and fun because the entirety of it is just historical fiction as well as sci-fi. It's not real. It's a set, people. At the end of it, it's just a soundstage.
It's a set. Whom?
Doctor Whom?
Doctor Whom?
For me, that's not to say that the show can't have serious moments, serious storytelling. I think they've done a lot of and plenty powerful episodes talking about really critical things, really important, historical moments and kind of what the world was like at certain points and like reflections on that. All of that has its place in Doctor Who. But it's a British man flying around in a spaceship shaped like a police box, and it's called the Sonic Screwdriver, and it looks insane. Like, the show is inherently silly and stupid. And I think when you forget to lean into the joy and fun of historical fiction and sci-fi, I think you lose a lot of the whimsy of it. Not that you can't use those mediums for your more serious storytelling, but I feel like it's a waste of the medium and a waste of the genre, because I'd rather you just do that not so allegorically like that.
And you're not even saying that there shouldn't be lines or boundaries, but it's sometimes people are stifling of their own creativity in that way.
Yeah.
And I mean, Russell T Davies is constantly playing with that line very respectful. I mean, like in this episode, everybody I know cried when Tennant starts regenerating. And then the moment ends really quickly and becomes a very silly moment for like 2 seconds. And then it becomes like a really cool, kind of beautiful moment. And it's all one after the other. In 3 minutes, you get multiple emotions and multiple takes and like the dawning realization that this, of course, there's no logic to this. This makes no sense. Even at the show's internal rules, it makes no sense. And they acknowledge that too. But you do have this one beautiful moment of this man's two very good friends coming and saying he's not going to die alone. And that's beautiful, man. That's just heartbreakingly beautiful. But can you imagine if we were just like, he's not going to die alone. He didn't die alone. Thanks for coming, everyone. Safe ride home.
Good night.
Beautiful theater, sure, something that I could appreciate from other shows, but never what I would want for Doctor Who. And of course, they would never be that serious, but it is just like you still have to find and constantly be plucking the line. Otherwise, you do risk a bit of stagnation.
One of the responses that I've seen from people in various forms is that this sort of invalidates the reality or gravity of death. And to that I say that was sort of gotten rid of in 1965 when they invented regeneration in the first place.
Yeah.
There was of course always something sad about, when a doctor left and you would never see them again. And there was a finality to it. But I don't really feel like the finality of that is necessary to the fabric of the program. I think it's always been beautiful the way that has been so allegorical for real loss and real death. But I feel like a lot of people put a lot of weight on fiction that it doesn't necessarily, that it shouldn't be responsible for. This isn't here to be the thing to hold your hand through a loss like that. And there are ways in which you can rely on that to help comfort you. but like it is a television show, and it needs to be able to allow to be free creatively and be inventive. And again, the fact of the matter is he clearly has been effectively immortal for a very long time. Even before the revival, you kind of always know the Doctor is going to be immortal. And so this is a way to kind of evolve that concept.
I think the regenerations are actually pretty impressive for the fact that they are a death every time. Every single one I have cried at. Because the person, there is a thing that does not come back, that will never be the same again. It is its own form of death. Obviously, the entity doesn't die, and that's the whole point. And you know that going into it. But you also, I mean, like, the first one I saw was Eccleston into Tennant, which was great. But Tennant into Smith, where he says, I don't want to go, is insanely sad. It is a beautifully tragic moment. And I think, given the fact that you're like, well, but the show continues anyway, the fact that they actually managed to like do a death and make it really beautiful and tragic is actually much more impressive than the idea that like the show doesn't actually have death.
Yeah, I get that. So to drop the knowledge that I've gleaned from the audio commentary and what Russell talked through, what he feels bi-generation is and what the process is, as he described in the moment that the split happens, in his feeling and estimation, and now every Doctor retroactively is also bi-generated. So there is a copy of 10, there is a copy of 8. His feelings on this specifically was that there is a very stifling limit on creativity of being able to bring old Doctors back when it comes to like Colin Baker or Tom Baker even, where as the actor ages, you can't bring that character back anymore. You can make fudgy, wibbly wobbly stuff, but people always roll their eyes. This was an attempt to, instead of it being just a brand new being, the copy is sort of, I would say it's like a snake shedding its skin, where now this figure doesn't regenerate, I believe, and will grow old. And this is a way that you can have the Sixth Doctor come back for a story now, and it's the bi-generated one. So that's sort of, he keeps talking about it as in his head. So as far as I can tell, there isn't anything actually actively going on, but that is what this is sort of the intention. So like David specifically asked, so there's 3 of me out there now, 10, the meta crisis, and now 14. And Russell said, yes, they all are out there with their own TARDIS and doing their thing. He didn't confirm that they are going to age and never regenerate, but that is my belief based on all this stuff that he did say, because then otherwise what would be the purpose if they're all out there regenerating? So like everyone's been speculating, will 14 now turn into the Curator? No, if anything, now the Curator is probably the 4th Doctor, the bi-generated copy. So that's as he is currently describing it. So thoughts, I guess.
What knowledge not to be able to get in America.
Yeah, I mean, and I think he also relies a little bit too much on stuff like social media is going to get that information out there. But I have it.
I mean, I'm a Brandon Sanderson person, so I spend a lot of my time getting very deep lore and knowledge just from essentially commentary and like things that he writes in his signatures on books that people ask for. So I'm comfortable getting in that way. I mean, I think I love that he is saying in my head, because it means that he has not written, it needs to show up at some point.
Yeah.
And I imagine, hearing it on paper or, just hearing it said, it's not like my favorite thing ever, but I think if you told me about the bi-generation moment in this episode, I would have said I don't like it, but I loved the episode. I loved it when it happened. So I think getting into getting into the mechanics of it, and if this is sort of a retroactive throughout time thing where originally they didn't bi-generate, but because these two did, it now goes back in time and every other doctor does it, or whatever the explanation winds up being. I think that will be interesting if they can take some time in the canon and lore of the show to actually establish what's going on here. I think it could be really cool. I think it makes a lot of sense because they do always want to bring people back. Of course they do. And, you know, people are living a lot longer now. Matt Smith has decades to come back and be the Doctor. Jodie Whittaker, decades. And people are going to want that eventually. And it is going to get... Eventually, something's going to happen. Chris Eccleston's going to, like, be in a car accident and realize life's too short not to be the Doctor one last time. And, you know, people are going to want those moments without a stupid explanation every time.
Yeah.
And so I think having one canon thing makes a lot of sense. And on a similar important note, to Nico's original point of like, he's writing his own fan fiction of not just his work, but like the entire work of the Doctor. I loved that they made so many references to the stuff that had been happening. You know, Ncuti Gatwa talking about everything that the Doctor had been through, with Adric and the Pandorica opening and everything. Like the toy maker talking about the flux. They've really leaned into the fact that all of this stuff not only happened, but is weighing on the Doctor and is really affecting the Doctor, which I think for years they were very scared of doing. And you'd get really minor references, but no, like, these are lasting repercussions. And I think the fact that they're talking about stuff more means that the whole gathered together canon of the show can be sort of important and utilized and analyzed, and not just be in the constant state of always moving forward that the show itself says the Doctor cannot maintain.
So I'm gonna move us a little bit off of this topic only because I want to make sure we get to talk about the whole episode.
Yeah,
But you know,
sure.
one of the really big things about this episode that I think was so significant was the reflection of the past and also the reinvention of the toy maker. You don't have to know who the toy maker is to understand that, yes, the Doctor often does this is the most frightening bad guy in the galaxy. But this guy really did have sort of a madcap reality altering whimsy to him. And I think seeing so much of the Doctor's very serious story, so much of, and then Amy Pond died, and then Clara died. Like, you know, well, that's all right then. And like, you know, the reality of sort of the Americanification of the Doctor up through now, turning him into this generic, you know, sci-fi cowboy identity.
Yeah, action hero.
I think it goes a really long way to talk about the sort of internals of this universe have to be evolving. You know, one of the things that this really made me think of is the fact that, you know, there's a little bit of shit coming RTD's way about the fact that it's not sci-fi the way it used to be. It's a more fanciful sci-fi. And that actually has to be okay because sci-fi has evolved. And if Doctor Who does not keep up in some regard, it's going to get left behind.
I also don't think I agree with that at all. Doctor Who has been science fantasy the entire time.
It's felt apologetic about its fantasy at times, though. Like, there is always an underlying, oh, but it's
like,
aliens
the
and science. It's aliens and science. It's aliens
this
and
battery,
science.
this computer.
Whereas Star Trek, I was saying earlier, I feel like has always been a lot less apologetic for its magic. They are very, like, it's part of the universe, but they aren't apologetic when it's a little mystical. And I feel like Doctor Who has always been, but underneath the Scooby-Doo mask, it's actually still science, and don't forget when, like, it's not. And it's always been whimsical. And so it's trying to give itself more permission to just do that. Like, everyone questioning, but how did the toy maker do that? There's no answer. Normally there is, oh, well, the energy and the transdimensional neutrino flow. And instead it was, I don't know.
And, I think that's one of the things that made this episode able to have, a pre-Jinx joining the show lip sync. I think that we legitimately had a bunch of Spice Patrick Harris's, so we had Dr. Spice and we had Met Your Mother Spice and we had, White Castle Spice. And the three of them.
Prince Gumball Spice.
Oh, same.
The original.
Yes. And we had them all just dancing through. Jonah, how did you feel about, we promised you Doctor Who, this series show about Isaac Newton, and here's Spice Up Your Life. See ya. Hold tight.
Nah. Hotel. Nah. Anyway, we don't have the license. More importantly, to answer your question, I think I want to slightly done what I talked about earlier, but combine it to your question. There's room for both. You can have your, you can have your allegories, you can have your serious storytelling, and you can have this. This also felt decently enough inspired by the likes of Everything Everywhere All at Once, where I think that really kind of that movie I think really kind of redefined this idea of reality warping, mysticism, and how do you make that fun and enjoyable and crazy and wacky.
The mainstream, yeah.
And Jamie Lee Curtis and Neil Patrick Harris have some overlapping lesby structures.
Oh, I see it. So for me, that really was a very fun kind of bright moment where he's dancing with everybody and try to shoot and it's just confetti. And that's where the point is to also showcase to the rest of the cast, even though we, the audience, know the Toymaker is a threat, that, this is somebody serious and dangerous. We don't know how to deal with this. We have to just leave it to the doctor. And I think that was some pretty good storytelling. And I really enjoyed the very playful. Now, to what we were talking about before, did I fully understand a lot what was going on in terms of the plan and the puppet? No. A lot of it doesn't make sense.
Hold on. I'm so sorry. Everybody, you have to be thinking about your answer while you also listen to Jonah. We have been asked who our Spice Girl is. So everybody get that going. Please continue.
For me, Baby Spice.
Great question.
We love you, Emma.
Baby as a kid. Kind of found my way to Ginger as an adult, but back to Baby all the way. Baby. Solo work is the best.
Are we answering this now?
Quickly answer. Just answer.
In there.
Talent wise, Mel B, sporty all the way, 100%. Queen. Mel C, sorry. Thank you. Mel B, identity wise, scary. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Plus, that's how I dressed in high school. It was just leopard print, whatever I could get my hands on, and two large puff balls on my head.
That is the intersection of non-white hair and Jewish hair, from what
it was very that.
As a Latino guy who had very, very dense hair and had to use relaxer to get his hair down. Yeah, I know the feeling. Kevo, who was your Spice Girl?
I want to say Ginge.
Good choice.
Gingy?
Right, yeah. She always had really strong leadership vibes, and I dig that.
I will say I was very disappointed that they themselves did not show up. Still waiting.
That's a Billie Eilish concert, so you never know.
Stop it.
Well,
I will say that this moment absolutely reminded me of the Scissor Sisters moment with the Master in season. Yeah. I mean, it's a very similar moment. And it was one of those things where I watched this with my partner, Jake, who pointed this out. And we were both like, Russell T. Davies gonna Russell T. Davy. There are just moments where it's not a bad thing. Again, it's that very Claremont thing where you're like, oh no, another woman has shown up in dominatrix gear to be a total cunt. What will I do with myself? but enjoy this comic book forever and stand this character for the rest of my life. And so it's like when you get a Russell T Davies trope, it's very much you recognize it, you can point to exactly where you've seen it before, but not in a way where you're like, oh, this hack. More in the way where you're like, this guy just does whatever he wants. And if he likes a particular theme, like the idea of a serious actor being wacky and doing a number, it's got to be a pop song. It can't just be like his own number. Then he's just going to do that.
NPH is very grateful that you consider him a serious actor, number one. And number
I do not, but I think that's
I
the identity he's taking.
I mean, how could we forget such great hits as Drag Me to Dinner?
Kevo.
Well, first of all, one of the great things from the commentary that Russell kept pointing to was that they almost felt bad with how much they were exhausting Neil Patrick Harris's talents, because like there's this, there's the card tricks. There were so many things where he was like, the accents, we really exhausted everything that man can possibly do. And we're not sorry because, it all looked great. I have a little bit more somewhat spoilery content if anyone is interested on the subject of
always
and what we can expect to see. And I'll put up this little spoiler alert thing so people can see and know to, if they want to mute, unmute. So Russell talked about this, and he talked about his departing line of "My legions are coming," and the word he specifically used repeatedly was "gods," and he even specifically said the number that we have met so far in where they are in production in the new season, and it really leads me to believe that Jinx perhaps will be one of these figures. And, I really feel, for me, I'm getting this really strong impression that this is perhaps where Russell is driving the Timeless Child story. The way that the Doctor spoke to the Toymaker as a fellow Eternal and putting himself on that same level. And these things that we are seeing that he did in this last special, and the way that he's stretching his abilities. I really wonder if Russell is driving towards something where we find out that the Timeless Child is some sort of immortal on the level of the Celestial Toymaker, and that is a further intent to evolve the Doctor as a character and an immortal figure. And whereas the Toymaker's thing is play, the Doctor is sort of like the universe's eternal companion, ever the Timeless Child of the universe.
I like that. I think that's super interesting. I do notice that a lot of what came out of the 3 specials was stuff outside the universe, which, we know regarding the Timeless Child that they got the Timeless Child from outside the universe, that the Timeless Child is not. And so, I think that's interesting. I would love to see that all play out. I think those were some of the more interesting concepts in the Whittaker years that just didn't quite gel. Again, I think there was no fun. There was no silliness. It was very, very serious. It was very dark. I
think part of what it suffered from was an antagonistic fan base. And
absolutely.
At the end of the day, one of the things that has been the most frustrating is, I'm not coming even for our own show where I think every one of us has done it at some point, but the immediate, nope, not interested in stuff that needs time. We think back on the Dark Phoenix saga, and you can go and find proof that the Dark Phoenix saga got as many hate letters as it did love letters. And I think that one of the things that we need to recognize is the bigger tapestry of how all of this comes together. If the next 2 years of X-Men had been trouncing on the Dark Phoenix saga, we wouldn't love it. But the idea that the next 2 years were mourning the loss of Jean and mourning the loss of the Dream and mourning the loss of Innocence, I think we get a sense of that sort of exploration of idea, in this distance from a story allows us to think of the story differently.
I didn't love the Dark Phoenix saga until Morrison, because I liked it fine, but I didn't love it until the mythology of what the Phoenix is got leveled up. This is happening a little sooner. This is not taking 20 plus years, but I think you're right insofar as Chibnall did what every showrunner in Doctor Who has done, which is plant a lot of seeds. And I think the way he did it was a little bit different. But you're absolutely right insofar. And like, I'm absolutely guilty of being like, this isn't really doing it for me. But hearing it interact with all this other stuff, I am liking a little bit more what I'm hearing. And I don't think that is because Davies is improving on something that wasn't good. I think it is in part distance. And I think it is in part, you have to plant the seed and let it grow and let people absorb from afar the body of work that you have done. The idea of the Doctor as, possibly foreign to this universe, but this universe's most beloved friend, as was said before, companion, that could be a really beautiful concept. And that all starts from this stuff that, I myself was not super into at the time.
Can I also just add to that? When you plant the seed, you also have to water it to make sure it blooms. You can't just plant the seed and then say, there it is, and then you don't touch it anymore, and then you come back later and it's a full tree. Well, no, you have to show the nurturing of it. We can't just skip from seed to tree. There's a lot of middle steps that have to go into it that I think we have to be able to see to understand that transition.
And if I may, something that I think is also important to include in this discussion is the length of work. Russell T. Davies produced 60 episodes. Stephen Moffat produced 84. Chris Chibnall produced 31. Literally, the 10th Doctor alone was 47 episodes.
Wow.
The 11th Doctor was 44. The 12th Doctor was 40. And, I feel there probably... I even would agree that there should have been more fruition with the time that there was. But literally 31 episodes. The amount of time that Chibnall was on in comparison to the other showrunners is a footnote, truly. Even for the length of years.
And that's part of what I think is the narrative that shifts how we have to discuss Doctor Who. We like to discuss Doctor Who as America's long-running science fiction show. As not America's long. I'm so embarrassed because it's going to be like...
Yeah, it's not American.
The difference is Star Trek is multiple shows. So even though it's iterations of the Enterprise or it's iterations of Starfleet and it's iterations of, the Federation, what we're really faced with is this idea of a universe. But Doctor Who is about the idea of one person. And so as we see that evolve, as we see it continue, I think we're finding ourselves in a position where the character of Doctor Who, just looking at the fact that, Ncuti Gatwa, this incredibly sexy, incredibly debonair gentleman who debuted in a pair of briefs, my personal same style choice, buddy, looking so fine. It's totally different than the first Doctor, who probably would have had some choice names for this gentleman. And I think that's kind of the thing that Doctor Who represents. It's a comic book at this point. It is the mythology of a character that has been worked on for 70 years, not just a universe that has been worked on for 70 years. And that's a special kind of magic. It meta changes the conversation.
Yeah.
Also, Ncuti Gatwa in a pair of briefs is definitely a thing that only the guy who created Queer as Folk and recreated Doctor Who twice could do quite the way he did and not have it feel trashy.
I love Tasty's comment, easiest cosplay for the Doctor. You won't be able to stop Nico from wearing just a pair of trainers, briefs, and an open shirt.
But now we can call it a cosplay.
And now we can call it a cosplay. So, yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you for that. And if not that, there's the upcoming skirt in the Christmas special already, which looks fantastic.
I'm hoping, I'm excited to see Ncuti play the Doctor. I've been enjoying Ncuti's portrayal of Eric on Sex Education. I've been catching up on season 4. And I think Eric's having a really great season 4. Really great storytelling going on there. I'm hoping to see some Emma Mackey. I hope she would come in for an episode. I would love that. Bring the cast of Sex Education. Not everybody, but most of them.
Bring in all of them, especially the tall one. I like him.
Bring in Gillian Anderson. That's the most important one.
Yes. Oh my God. I'm sure Russell would love to work with her. Bring in Gillian Anderson to play the Ronnie. Not joking. Bring in Gillian Anderson to play the Ronnie.
That'd be a banger right there.
against Shurigatwa. Oh my god, when they've already played against each other as Jean and Eric. Oh my god, that would be amazing. That would be like Catherine Tate and David Tennant playing Scrooge and Magic and Dispel against each other. I also really love, it really felt to me as soon as Shuri stepped in and the warm lighting that I love so much came across the TARDIS, and seeing this with the jukebox versus the plain white of 14's TARDIS, it really feels like he got the factory default and now Shooties has the personality, which I love.
I just, that the new one with David and Catherine, something that's amazing about 14 and Donna is they are automatically the funniest show in town. Doesn't matter what they got going for them. They are the funniest show in town. So they walk into an incredibly sterile room and it's suddenly a brilliant blank screen for them to be funny against.
Yes.
Not that Shurigatwa isn't incredible, which he is, but we don't know him yet. So this idea that his charm had to be so intense from step one, he needed that little bit of the jukebox. Instead of feeling hospital sanitized, he feels stylish. He feels like a Gucci ad. He feels like someone who knows. It's that I can't remember the model's name, but it's that Gap ad from like '98. My first love, Angus Young, where like the idea was you could take an incredibly sterile standing set, and by putting something you don't expect, a beautiful black woman playing electric guitar to AC/DC, it transforms the idea of the story. By simply putting Shuri in that role, I really think you were able to transform our expectations of a very plain TARDIS.
I mean, I think it even started before that. I think for me, the big moment, they hit the ground running with him as soon as they split, as soon as Tennant and Shurigatwa split, and you have the two doctors there. But when 15 goes and hugs 14 and just holds him a little bit, cried like a small child, because also immediately it reminded me of when Steven and fully Gem Steven reunite at the end of Steven Universe, which I just think is one of the most beautiful moments in the history of television. And I just cried and cried and cried. But that he comes in with such authority as somebody who's clearly physically younger. And the great thing about Doctor Who is it always does matter that the actor physically looks younger, smaller, slighter, more inexperienced. But it also doesn't, and they'll play with that a lot. That was a huge thing with Matt Smith. Matt Smith was always older, wiser, more experienced than Alex Kingston, except in the moment, Matt Smith is so much younger, babyier, slighter than this, and it's a constant back and forth. And so it's we were talking about the constant back and forth of the silliness and the drama, and to have Shurigatwa be the older, settled, rehabbed figure who says to this completely torn apart doctor, like, come here, I've got you, and holds him. For me, that was also a really immediate setup of like who this person is going to be. This is someone who is confidently loving and healing and caretaking immediately in a way that like is also very cool. Like, it's also like, oh man, like, how great that was his first instinct. And he didn't do what some of the other doctors do, which is to heal and caretake very violently and to say, like, I will kill anything that hurts you. That's how much I love you. Rather than doing that, he really just leans completely into physical affection and love. It really set us off on a tone. And Russell T Davies has been the person writing the violent, terrifying doctor that loves you so much he'll burn the universe down for you. So it's not like, oh, finally we got Russell back. No, he's playing all these different facets.
Physician, heal thyself. Something I really love about you making that point and bringing up the hug as well is something I flashed on, and why I'm so excited to rewatch these in full. As you were saying it, I flashed on the moment in the first special where Shirley is talking to the doctor, and she's like, that's knowledge of your own future. That's forbidden. She's telling him what his own rules are, that he's not allowed to meet or know of his own future. And the first thing Shooty does when he interacts with a former version of himself is to embrace him with love and care and help make sure that he is settled and in a good place. And I am so excited for how much of rewatching these specials I will see these patterns. Like at the very beginning, when Sean repeatedly says to 14, I've got my girls. I'm the luckiest man in the world. I'm the luckiest man in the world. And now here at the end of the third special is the 14th Doctor, part of that world and getting to experience something like that. And it's just really cool.
Well, I can't wait to come back and talk about one more Doctor Who special this year.
Christmas!
We have a Christmas special.
This has been like the greatest abundance of Doctor Who stuff in a long time. It's been really pleasant.
It's been a month of it, and that's been so exciting because I feel like the last time there was a big drop was Flux, and even if this was received with some questionable love, Flux was received unevenly the way perhaps a Torchwood Miracle Day was.
Well, and great example, because both were not particularly fun. As great as they might have been, I have missed a little. I didn't get a ton of fun out of the Capaldi years, honestly. So I really missed fun Doctor stuff. And as dramatic, again, Russell played with the silliness the whole time. As dramatic and traumatic as these last three specials have been, there was a lot of fun. And to roll from that into Christmas, which is basically always something of a good time, really just a blast. I'm super stoked. And like I said, we talked about this last week. I love the new Doctor really getting his start in a Christmas episode. So Tennant came in, very, very stoked about that.
And the only other thing that I want to note is for my birthday, my dad, Russell T. Davis, dropped a first look at Shooty's Sonic Screwdriver. And it is the most insane thing
it's
I
a
have
sex
ever
toy.
seen. I mean, the one before it was too. So, I love it. I need it. Tomorrow. I'm only sad this probably won't be available for Christmas.
I bet Tamara has one. Tamara has one. I love this thing, actually. I think it does look a little bit like a space age IUD, but definitely on Sex and the Future City, it's something that Cyborg Mantha would definitely use. So I love it. I think he is so fucking cool. He's just fucking cool, and he's sexy, and I can't wait to see more. Jonah, do you have anything left on Doctor Who before we roll into a fun little game?
No, not really too much more. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was campy. I thought it was fun, but it still felt threatening. And I think that's, for me, that's where I like Doctor Who, where we can play with the whimsy, but also, give us the serious of, it feels threatening, because everything is just silly, haha, Looney Tunes kind of humor. You're gonna lose the threateningness and the, why is this serious? Like, why do we need to be taking care of this? It'll be fine. We'll just goof. We'll sing Spice Girls.
True.
All right, TK, any final thoughts on Doctor Who before we find ourselves looking at then and now?
No, I mean, I think I said most of my stuff. I am really excited for this. Shooty is very cool. He's gorgeous. Nico, you covered this, but I just want to throw back to it for just 1 second. I think it was really smart to acknowledge that Shooty is the hot Doctor. We've been getting progressively hotter through the years. Eccleston, I mean, Paul McGann, super hot, but whatever. Eccleston, very handsome man. Tennant at the time, just like so cute. I think Matt Smith was so cute and got hotter throughout his run. I know that is a bit subjective, but you can't deny he was youthful and
like cute Rocky Dennis.
Stop it.
Yes, no, and that's fair.
Get a sense of humor, Rocky Dennis. Best line from Family Guy.
Best thing Patrick Stewart's ever said.
Capaldi, not my thing, but I think the idea that he was sexy to River Song, that was like the sexiest Doctor to River Song.
We all knew that girl in high school who was a senior with a 29-year-old boyfriend.
Yeah.
Who wore
and then,
yes.
Jodie, absolutely gorgeous, but then they really played with, like, let's not sex objectify her. So then we get to this doctor who is just objectively young, has a fucking amazing body, is just absolutely beautiful. And I really felt like they both leaned into that and also didn't make it tawdry. He's in a full button down that's like a little bit open and fully covering Brie. Like he could be in hot pants. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
There's no bulge hanging out. There's nothing weird or like gross. Nobody makes anything like too sexy of a comment. Mel calls him beautiful, which is perfect. And so it's this acknowledgement that, like, yeah, I would love to watch this guy run around in short shorts, a la Tom Cruise in Risky Business. But nobody at any point is like, can't wait to see that doctor fuck.
Yeah, I mean, I want to see him and Tom Holland co-lead a full Monty remake.
Yeah,
not like he needs to turn this into Doctor Porn.
Right. And I just thought it was perfectly done. I think it's good to acknowledge each doctor's qualities, including being like very young and hot. Like, I think, we talked all the time about how Matt Smith was all elbows and knees. And like in that same way, we can put this guy in an open button down and just have a little fun. I thought that was great. I'll stop talking or I'll never stop.
So let's take a look then at our now and then board. I'm really excited about this. This has really been interesting to take a look at the fact that when the last time David Tennant and Catherine Tate dash generated into a new something, it was a very different program. It's the same sort of ironic return of the master kind of sort of. We still got a message of, from Wilf in a matter of speaking. But so much has happened for Doctor Who. Then versus now, Doctor Who was a sci-fi show finding its way into being a full-blown enterprise. And now Doctor Who is a legend as a result. I couldn't be more grateful for everything that's happened since, but only wish that we had a more positive fandom to echo that same sentiment.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an amazing 13-year transition. I think it's been earned. There's been stuff along the way. I think there were years where we just kept being like, okay, but why is it another white dude? And then we got Jodie Whittaker, and amazing stuff happened with Smith, Capaldi, like story stuff happened, amazing companions, Bill Potts. Like we started to see the thing grow, but we were like, why is it just another white dude? And we got some hints that it didn't have to be. So that was really exciting. And then finally we get Jodie Whittaker, and then immediately we get not just another female doctor, but a black female doctor. And then it just kind of felt like, okay, if we're not just going to, like, if that didn't just explode the show and mean that the fan base is never coming back and we're done, then the lid is entirely off and we are just going to do whatever we want, which means that a young queer black man who is very clearly a canonically queer doctor on screen, if that's going to be our guy, that really does mean this is a Doctor Who for a whole new generation. It's funny because they're interchangeably calling this series 1 and series 14. Like it's in my aggregators as season 14, but it is series 1 in a lot of ways because we are restarting this whole cycle again. And this, where we're starting from, is much more literally anything is possible. Anybody could be cast, anybody could show up, and that's all okay. The TARDIS has a wheelchair access ramp now. Get excited for not just we could go anywhere in space where white people can play green people, but anybody really can show up, and Davros won't be in the wheelchair.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it's really funny. One of the websites that I use to get a lot of the official promo stuff through the movie database, which is not Internet Movie Database, but it has already delineated. There is the classic Doctor Who, which is 63 to 89, and now there is Modern Who, which is 2005 to 2022, and this is delineated as now a third generation, I guess, of Doctor Who. I think it's really funny that this is the second time that Russell T Davies has come back to the title and restarted them at number 1. But that really speaks even further to the way in which this is very much like a comic book now. And, these things evolve when they exist over this length of time. And I'm just super stoked for seeing this special and seeing what there is to come.
Well, from one TV star space spanning enterprise to a different star space TV spanning enterprise.
I see what you did there.
Right? 2010 sucked for Star Trek. So I went by the last time that there was this exact version of the Doctor regenerating, and I'm not kidding. When Kevo saw Star Trek in theaters with me, and I'm pretty sure I screamed the entire film. I might have sobbed at one point.
The second one. We didn't see the first one together.
Okay. I'm pretty sure I actually got so mad I cried a couple of times during the second one.
You were real mad.
I really do not like the Kelvin timeline at all. Every actor is incredible. There is not a bad actor in these films, but everything about these damn movies stress me out.
I like them more now.
I'm so happy. So for me, 2010 Star Trek, bad. 2023 golden age of Star Trek. I think this is the best thing to happen to Star Trek since Lixana Troy was real horny for everybody.
I mean, that was the start of the journey, really. It's funny too, because Enterprise had ended in 2004. So we went 6 years with like nothing.
Well, after Enterprise, it's what they deserved.
In a way, yes, I think I really agree with that.
Oh no, it's a Sewell Bond.
What did Trip Tucker ever do to you? He's a great guy.
And I think the Kelvin timeline was an important mistake to make.
Okay.
And at least it was self-contained. At least, because I think the thing of it is, I don't know if they got the information or if it was just all shots in the dark, but I think there were some things we agreed on. These movies were not well written. The plots were bad. The writing was bad. The dialogue was bad, but like, okay, I accept that if we're going to rehash old Trek aesthetically, no, we should not be rehashing the looks. Like everything needs to be upgraded.
Right.
Then why did they downgrade Khan?
Well,
why?
don't get started. But that's, I mean, like Strange New Worlds and Discovery did the same thing. They took the aesthetics, they referenced them a lot, but they really updated them. So we weren't putting people in TNG uniforms the way we do when the DS9 crew goes back in time with the Tribbles. Remember that one? Yeah, we all remember that one. So like there were, we're never getting Leonard Nimoy back as a vibrant, active Spock. So now we have to recast. Zachary Quinto.
Not getting him back at all.
Well, now we're not going to. Yes, now he is worm food. But, I mean, realistically, he was cremated. Can
the chosen people be cremated?
That's a good point. We got Ethan Peck out of it. Ethan
Peck's Jesus.
Word.
We tried Zachary Quinto. That was too far in the wrong direction. We dialed it in, and we got Ethan Peck. So the Kelvin time. Yes, not gay, just less gay, guys. It's the important part. There was a lot of dialing into what can we do with Star Trek going forward that came out of the Kelvin timeline. It's just unfortunate that not a single movie was ever written well.
I just want to say that if Chris Pine wants to ever do a TV show, I would be really happy to write it for him. I think he is such a phenomenal actor. And I think he really, until recently, he is arguably the best actor to ever play Kirk. Talent wise, just being honest.
No, he still is. What's his name is not better.
But I mean, Chris Pine's ability is actually breathtaking. He is the best parts of these films for me.
Yeah.
Jonah, did you see the J. Abrams Star Trek? Did you care? If not, and how do you feel as somebody watching Star Trek now, knowing this is where it was, where you were getting, Zoe O'Hara?
And more specifically too, so either way, like I wasn't a Trekkie growing up either, but I was like very aware of Trek and the fact that I was growing up in the 90s being a Trek explosion. But where you were growing up and at this point, even if you weren't a Trekkie, like it had really fallen off until this movie, and then it got the reactions it did. So like keep that in mind as well. How did that affect the way you perceive?
So growing up, this was still a few years before I got into kind of sci-fi stuff. 2010, I was in 8th grade. Not, actually, no, I was in 7th grade.
Shit, that's depressing.
Because 10th grade was 2012. And I only remember that because of why we thought the world ended.
Stop it.
Never. So I was a 7th grader. I really wasn't into sci-fi yet. I was, a curmudgeon teenager who was hormonal and didn't want to talk to anybody and didn't want anybody looking at me.
I just need my Yu-Gi-Oh deck, guys. Leave me alone.
No, I did not talk about Yu-Gi-Oh at all. I had many likes I did not say for fear of being bullied for liking things that weren't of the current.
I was big enough that it was hard to bully me.
See, I wasn't, but I had a beard, and she was lovely. No, I'm kidding. But I didn't have an actual beard. I didn't have an actual beard. So I did not really know much about Star Trek. There was a little bit that I did know. I think, funny enough, that year I did dress up as Spock for Halloween, knowing literally nothing about Star Trek.
That's so funny.
It was a really easy costume for like a last minute thing.
Yeah.
I didn't have the ears on. Yeah, it was fun. But I do remember seeing a lot of the trailers when I did go to the movies and this being a thing, and me just being like, wow, I don't care. And that might be specifically a testament to the way these movies were marketed didn't do a good job of trying to draw a new audience in.
I agree completely.
So in a good way, this wasn't potentially very many people's first interactions with Star Trek, which is good.
I desperately need Evelyn right now. Evelyn and I have had like 4-hour-long stoned conversations. Evelyn used to be a comic contributor on the show. She has a lot of very intense feelings about the Kelvin timeline. And I wish she was here right now because she would echo so much of what Jonah is saying and like why that was so formative. Kevo, was Star Trek Into Darkness like your actual first
Kelvin?
Or like your first real intentional adult functional I am engaging with Star Trek moment?
In like a major motion picture in theaters way? Yes. We went to go see this after one of my Friday shifts at Banana Republic at the mall. I took a nap in my car.
So horrible.
Yeah, you did, because I took a nap in my car just to go to the movie and ate a burrito in the theater. You actually weren't the worst person at that movie, so hey. Yeah. And you weren't really genuinely that terrible, because honestly, now that I have a better understanding of what that period was in Star Trek history, and your feeling on the fact that this might be all we ever get again, because of how long it was between the end of Enterprise and the beginning of Discovery, and whether you like Discovery or not, that's a different debate. But even with Discovery, it took a while for the engine to get started again, and for us to get Short Treks and Picard and Strange New Worlds building out of Discovery and the promise of Starfleet and Section 31. And now we're really back in this Trek era again. So I am fortunate enough to have gotten back into my Trekkie era now. And so I understand what that must have felt like in, what was it, 2011, 2012 that Into Darkness came out. Yeah, I see the insult. I see the insult that is Khan. I do.
Oh my god! And look, I can't get into this again. Okay.
And I think a lot of it comes down to as well the way that you structure the things that you do. I saw a take on it recently where a feeling was a lot of people guessed it was Khan. They told us it wasn't. because they wanted it to be a surprise, and then it was. And this one read felt that the responses might have been better if you just owned up to it from the beginning. And I feel like with the era of Star Trek that we are in with Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks, there is really genuinely so much more transparency, except for really trying to keep genuine story surprises from you that will be genuine surprises as part of this ongoing universe. Something I always think about with a movie that has a mystery is how does the mystery hit when you watch it the second time? And nothing about the reveal that he's Khan is important the second time you watch. It was just to hit people in theaters. And that was the problem with a lot of the structure, is that they were just trying to get blockbuster moments and not really think about ongoing narrative storytelling.
I mean, the other thing is, if you don't know how to do it, if you don't know how to do a big reveal, if you don't know how to keep your shit locked down, if you are not, giving people fake script pages, only letting them see the lines on the day they get to film, and then you kind of knock them out.
Tell them who they're acting against or who they're fighting.
Completely making up this idea that Tom Holland can't keep a secret and sending him out there to fake spoil stuff.
I'm Tom Holland, and every day they told me that as Spider-Man, I would be fighting the Joker.
If you don't know how to do that stuff, don't lie. Just say, we're not going to tell you. When people say, what's Benedict Cumberbatch doing there? You go watch the movie and find out. It's a really silly thing. Like, it's embarrassing when people can't admit they don't quite have it. And in this, like, constantly competing, my universe is better than your universe. We did this stunt. We did that stunt. The worst thing is that nobody can ever say, it doesn't matter whether I'm better than the other guy. I'm just doing my thing. Like, they always, what?
Well, I just want to, like, I exactly what you're saying. It's why I keep being afraid that they've announced a Milton Bradley verse where they're going to be like a Sorry board game movie. The only version of Sorry I want is where they're like stock traders and they're destroying each other's portfolios and sending them back to start. Sorry, right?
Don't give away free ideas on our show.
That would be fucking great. I mean, greed is good.
Well, and if you're seeing Alexander Skarsgård run around with a stupid little fucking monocle and a mustache and coattails, and some guy is going, no, he's not the Monopoly man, it just gets stupid. And like, just do your work.
Yes.
This was before it? The same costume, everything?
That can't be the car from Life, because the car from Life has 6 peg holes, but that car has 7 peg holes.
Why are you trying to peg your car?
It almost feels like you're embarrassed of your work. And that's even what I was trying to say earlier about Doctor Who sometimes feeling like it's embarrassed of its fantasy sometimes. And like, you don't need to pretend you're doing something else. You can just be upfront and let people get excited or react to what they are going to get.
The very interesting thing about Star Trek then and now, and I don't know why it's working now, and it absolutely was not working. Well, I mean, actually, coming back to it. Right now, Star Trek doesn't really have a Dave Filoni or Kevin Feige or I guess now James Gunn. And back then, they had Abrams, who isn't really that guy. Abrams is a very famous director. He controls a lot of stuff. But he is not Kevin Feige. He is not a Dave Filoni. He is
He's not an Amy and Jamie Lego master.
And that's why Arena tried to kill Sydney.
He is very much...
would never do that to Sydney.
Oh my God. And fucking never. Absolutely never.
Her sister would. Her other sister would. I would even accept.
No, I don't think Katerina would have. Or sorry, I don't think Isabella Rossellini would have.
I agree that because Isabella Rossellini,
the other one,
loved,
yes, the Argentinian one that fucks Samantha on Sex and the City would absolutely. That is given. She kills like all of them. She's ready to end the
conversation.
It's very important that we discuss that Isabella Rossellini would not not kill Sydney Bristow.
Neither would Lena Olin.
Lena Olin, who we should have made her Mystique when we had the chance. Now we'll never get that chance. Irina Derevko really is Mystique. That's the best Mystique we've ever gotten on screen. Anyway,
I would never pull that spy momsky shit. Is even to pull it back and even still joking, but really seriously, that is what it is. They would never pull the woman that Kirk got pregnant is going to turn out to be a Gorn spy.
Right.
Like, no. You're not going to do something that horribly injures our perception of these characters.
No, they definitely aren't. But to my original point, they don't have the dude who is like, this is what's happening. I'm the one who controls everything. I do all the press conferences. I leak the stuff. And it's very interesting to me because I think Abrams was an early prototype of that guy. But he's not good at that part. He is a very efficient director. I don't always love his direction, but he gets it done. Those movies get fucking made. They come out in theaters and they make money. I don't love all of them, but it happens, man. But he's not a good talker. Every time he talks, he's like, my son, who's never worked for anything in his life, definitely deserves to write a Spider-Man comic. And you're like, hey, I hate you. Kevin Feige, Dave Filoni, James Gunn, these guys know and love their universes. We trust them. We trust their stewardship. We're following the whole thing. I think it's very interesting that Star Trek is in this golden age, but they don't have that guy.
Well, and speaking of Kevin Feige, I just want to say that, you know, when we think about the 2010 to 2023 span, the MCU, there were 2 movies and only one of them was even technically MCU.
Yep.
You know, I also hope that they continue to make Pop Funkos and they make a series of Funkos for Strange New World Series 1 so that I can get myself a popcorn. And I think that I will burn in hell for that. So, you know,
you're good.
The MCU, Hulk, Iron Man to now, I think the problem is one of these movies is objectively great, and the only really terrible actor in that great movie is hot as hell in this movie, so it is fine, right?
That is a personal feeling that you are projecting onto the film. The intention is not for us to think that Obadiah Stane is unbelievably gorgeous.
That's
you insane. Know it's not. You know it's not.
No, I mean, they literally even have him in that scene in a robe to like imply that he has like a sexuality about him. Like they actually do try to make him Tony's inferior equal. So I do hear what you're saying though. But then there's Hulk, where the only really hot guy in that whole movie is Ty Burrell. He's in it for 1 minute, and
excuse me, William Hurt. I'd like a word.
Young William Hurt can get it.
Are you hurt about William Hurt?
I'm pretty William Hurt over his performance in this movie.
I mean, everybody's performance. Liv Tyler, my queen, most famous person to graduate from my high school. She didn't graduate, but she went.
Okay, but that is the wrong thing to describe her as. Liv Tyler, Steven Tyler's self-insert sexual fetish object to play against Alicia Silverstone in the early 90s.
No, I don't like to talk about that.
Crazy. I'm just dying.
I'm crying that you're bringing this up right now.
Ragdoll.
So around this time of the MCU, similar to Star Trek.
Oh, I'm jaded. Okay, go ahead.
I was not watching this around this time. I was watching Weeds, Scrubs.
Word.
You were too young for Weeds back then.
I was not too young.
7th grade.
Can
I tell you? My sister posted that she just took our nieces to see the Mean Girls musical and was like, I hope they didn't get some of the jokes. But, like, these girls are in 6th grade, my darling. Mama. These kids get stuff. And, like, you know, I reacted, but then I'd forgot you said 7th. Yeah, 7th grade, you were watching Weeds. I accept that. Go ahead, continue.
My mom growing up, my mom kind of let me watch what I wanted within reason. I wasn't allowed to watch Family Guy, but when I was much younger, we watched Buffy together. We watched True Blood together. When I was about like 3 or 4, we watched Dogma together, which is not an appropriate movie for kids. So
I just want to say real quick, side note, anytime there's a dinner date where it's the 3 of us and Jonah's mom, I like to pretend that I'm her date and that Kevo and Jonah are on a date because his mom is such a fantastic mom. She has the taste to instill the View Askew-universe in a child. That is the kind of quality parenting I look for in a partner.
I will say there's nothing about Dogma that I wouldn't want my kid to know at 3 or 4.
Legitimately, it's just a rougher side of CCD, and I'm not even being ridiculous.
Yeah.
Alanis Morissette is the most comforting version of God to come out of the 90s, except for that woman at the end of the Ellen Here and Now special.
And I think even the bad language is I'd kind of rather you hear it in this safe context. Plus, nobody has any genitals, so it's good.
It's all good. Just like dolls. I also was watching a lot of the softcore horror gay films where a lot of guys were taking showers on Netflix. There used to be a whole series of them. Again, unregulated. You got to do what you want.
Unregulated. I love that description.
You just tell it on yourself on air.
You grew up with the basically the Joshua Jackson filmography, the skulls. What is the rules of attraction?
Yes. Also, congratulations on your relationship with Lupita Nyong'o. Joshua Jackson.
Oh.
Wow, that is an unrealistically hot couple.
I know. I think about it every day.
Good for them.
We all should. It's the modern version of Ryan Reynolds and Scarlett Johansson.
I really wasn't very well aware of specifically the MCU, this idea of creating this movieverse. I was familiar enough with the characters growing up. Not so much Iron Man. I didn't really care for Iron Man, but I did love the Hulk. Hulk was always a favorite, and just a bit with my family. When growing up, as a way to get us to eat vegetables and greens, my family would say, "You want to be like the Hulk, big and green? You have to eat your vegetables," and then we would eat them.
And now you're Amadeus Cho.
And now I'm Amadeus Cho, a very smart, handsome Hulk who is very muscular, but also has time for brains while being muscular. All of this is long-winded to say I knew nothing about this, and I did not again. But it wasn't as comparative to Star Trek, where I just didn't have the interest because it's not the kind of fantasy I watched. It was, I literally had no idea this was going on. Like, that's not what me and my friends were going to the movies to go see. We were going to see, like, Saw and Paranormal Activity. We were going to see horror movies. We were not rated R movies that we weren't really supposed to see again.
Okay, I'm with you on Paranormal Activity, which I ultimately thought was fine. I remember seeing the first Saw and just literally, I'm not even kidding. I remember being in the theater and my then boyfriend being like, "You're literally ruining it for a packed movie theater," screaming into the theater, "Calm down. It's probably just the other guy." And like, because everybody was so scared. Anyway, I actually love that you brought back up Star Trek because we got an awesome comment from Timescales, which said our dad told us we could not watch Star Trek because Spock looked like the devil. It ended up being our favorite program when we got addicted to Voyager. Kevin and I just finished an incredible Voyager rewatch at the partial recommendation of TK, who is one of his favorites.
We want you to love us more.
Can't recommend it enough. And Cyborg, I want to say, I've seen some Cobra Kai. I was never a big Karate Kid person. I do enjoy watching Hilary Swank jump over the hood of a car, but I was never a big Karate Kid guy. But Cobra Kai has my attention because I like muscular guys in their 50s. So I'm going to give it a try, and we'll find out what happens.
I imagine we'll probably end up binging and perhaps even covering it closer to the eventual recently announced film that will be coming out, because I am fascinated by a lot of the culture. This is more specifically pop culture that we've noticed has experienced resurgences both now and 13 years ago. I was not a Marvel person in any way, shape, or form before you. I believe this was even specifically the New Year's Eve where you tried showing me the Incredible Hulk in anticipation of Iron Man 2. and we did not finish the movie. The most vivid thing I remember was me commenting that the Blu-ray was green, and I thought that was cute. You know, again, this was such a weird time for this franchise to think about how far it has come over the last 13 years and where it is now. You know, it's funny because I feel like now that we are over the end game hump of everyone being so stoked for the Portals moment and all that great stuff, we are back around to it is like at least 50% complaints, 50% this is the greatest thing I've ever seen, which is exemplified by the two images that we have to represent the end of 2023 here, where Loki has rave reviews, the Marvels not so much. But, you know, I don't think in terms of scope, tone, vision, quality, that the MCU has really changed. It's just developed. I feel like I am just looking at this end of 100 episodes as opposed to only like 5 or 6. You know, things are going to feel different at the end of that many episodes, by all means. But it still feels like the same show overall. I'm really glad that they are taking a lot of time post-strike to think about what they're doing going forward, because that just is comic book writing, and that's comic book stories like we were saying about Doctor Who. You have to be able to roll with the punches.
I mean, when you think about it, I think you're right. Like, I do think the scope has broadened, but I think we knew at the end of Iron Man, okay, if this works, we're going to get the rest of the Avengers. And if that works, we're going to get an Avengers movie. And if that works, we're going to get a second Avengers movie. And if those work, they can expand. And when they expand, maybe this will happen. And when we started to see the expansion happen, we thought, well, I wonder if they could get the X-Men back. I wonder if they could, you know, fold more stuff in. And so there was never a point at which we were like, it's probably just going to be this Iron Man movie and, you know, maybe a sequel and then we'll be done. Like, it always seemed like there was going to be more. In 2010, fandom was just a different thing entirely. We were on Facebook, but like Facebook groups weren't really even that well organized.
Facebook
and like
was cool.
Facebook was like just barely, it was starting to lose its cool. Instagram was up, but like Instagram didn't have stories yet. TikTok didn't exist at all. YouTube didn't have like a wealth of content creators. Like Vine hadn't even really gotten into its prime yet at this point. So like so much stuff changed to get us to a point where you have people like us doing commentary on everything the MCU does. You have people sharing reels, sharing stories, sharing TikToks, organizing and like 8 different platforms in which, you know, the opinions will come as they come, but there's also a lot of groupthink happening. Twitter was fully around and established back then, but like Twitter has gone through full cultural shifts before and after that time. You know, Trump was not a person yet. The rise of the...
He's still not a person, so
no, he truly is not.
The value of humanity.
You know, the rise of the MAGA right and the extreme right was not there. So I think you guys are right. I don't think the MCU has drastically changed. I think fandom changed. And I think it's crazy to be part of the fandom that is just like, even if I have opinions and don't like stuff and certain things aren't for me, I will always refer to it. Didn't love Captain America and the Winter Soldier, but happily watched every episode and really would never want to go online and be like, fuck the show and fuck everything about it because I didn't get this thing that I wanted. I would just say here, like, wasn't my biggest cup of tea, but boy, did I have a blast watching it. And I love being a part of the fandom where for the most part, everybody likes stuff. You know, I'm a media theorist in another life. So like, I like to talk critically. I like to evaluate, you know, Nico is the same. It's one of the things that we do together is, you know, talk in a semi-scholarly way, a rehab scholarly way about the stuff that we see. But at the end of the day, we're also just people going to the movies and enjoying stuff. And that's really, really fun. It's wild to be pitted against people who are like, there are 3 women on screen together. I'm thinking about burning the movie theater and everyone in it down. It's so weird to live in this world where I have access to all the stuff that I want and all the people I want, but only at the cost of like an insane mob of people also having the same thing. And those two forces weighing on these films to the point where like the Marvels didn't do well because of a host of factors. And it's being treated as though like, well, those 3 women were on screen together, so of course it tanked. And that's just wild to me. It's very insane times that we're living in. That kind of, to me, for MCU is the biggest thing. Not so much that the movies have changed so much.
And I even specifically popped into the comments for anyone who wants to check it out, our coverage of the Secret Invasion finale, because I think that speaks to what you're saying, where yeah, we didn't love it as a group, and we had a lot of critical things to say about it, but there's a difference between having critical things to say about it and kind of just going off and kind of just flaming it and kind of calling it crap and not having anything positive to say. Like, we had a lot of positive things to say, too, and we had a lot of constructive criticism about what we would have liked to see and what we'd like to see in the future, and all of that is fine. Absolutely. No one's saying you can't criticize in any form, but some of the criticisms just don't hold any weight.
And that's also how I feel about so much of the criticism of the Star Wars universe. Just to take a look at one more franchise in the big picture. In 2010, the Star Wars universe was firmly in the 2nd season of the Clone Wars. We were out of the prequels, but we were nowhere near the sequels. And that's a kind of situation for me. This is not my Star Wars. I guess I'm not a prequels guy. I'm an original trilogy and a sequels guy, which, fine, be whoever you want to be. But the thing I love about the sequels is the fullness of the universe. I know Clone Wars was trying to get there, but for me, 2010 is not the Star Wars era for me.
We're also 2 years from Disney buying Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
So we're at a point in which I think we've been told a number of times, I'm not interested in doing sequels. So we've been told you are getting up to Jedi and before expanded however we can do it. And you are getting safe bets. You are getting, financially viable stuff. Clone Wars was very much for kids that grew up with the prequels to kind of grow into a Star Wars presence on television. And then I think for older people, a lot of it was the expanded universe in books. But we were basically told
comics, video games, the enormity of the Star Wars expanded universe is media alone.
Right.
One of the most important about Star Wars.
But never movies.
I specifically have a number for us to be able to use as a reference. But what I would call the culmination of the post-Jedi era, which was, the Thrawn stuff, Han and Leia and Luke's kids, was about May 2008. That was the end of Legacy of the Force, which was a series of 9 books that showed Jason Solo falling to the dark side and him having to battle his sister. That was the culmination of that, was around May 2008. So even when we were having the expanded universe had also come to a sort of culmination before where we are talking about, too.
And, I love that everybody thinks about the expanded universe as this like untouchable thing. It's, your protective canon. I feel like we all snapped that way at the end of Endgame. This is it. This is perfectly protected. This is crystalline and it's in a case, so it's almost like people forget that like Jason Solo would go on to date Jordan Sparks, have a number of pop R&B hits.
Cut him off. Cut his mic.
So it's not, I'm not allowed to make one Jason Derulo joke when he is so beautiful. Come on.
That is true.
I'll let that's your barometer.
Right. But no, I think it's so important to remember that, 2008, we're literally talking about the fact that that's just before the Marvel Disney purchase as well. That is such a massive point of change. And it makes so much sense that so many people became protective of the identity of their world in 2008. Not to make it too political, but, don't forget that a lot of people did not feel the sort of joy and safety that many of us felt at the beginning of the Obama administration. For me, the Obama administration is one of the happiest I've ever been in, politically in my life. And I know that the world didn't all feel that same sense of consistent love. So there were a lot of people for whom 2008, 2009 is a turning point for a sort of protective, almost warlike mentality against other ideas. So knowing that we can even point to places in fandom that it becomes that same level of, this is where it cuts off. This is the point. It's really fascinating. I wonder how much the world has changed just as much as we're saying fandom has changed.
And I will say, we then get the sequel films, which to me, it's a weird thing. They're so important. And I think Force Awakens is fantastic. I love Last Jedi.
My favorite of all the movies.
Yeah. But then even in Last Jedi, we can see that some critical bolts have fallen off of the wagon. And those bolts are like anybody else having confidence in Rian Johnson. And then
like having more than 2 extras in a scene so that it seems like this whole thing was filmed with 5 people in a big empty throne room.
And then we do Rise of Skywalker, which is just not right. It's just not right. And again, we got Abrams in the mix, showing up, putting in all the work because these movies have to come out and they have to make money or we're not doing Star Wars. So I do have to give him credit. He did a phenomenal first movie that really made the franchise financially viable. And I don't think it was bad. It was not game changing for me. But I don't think it...
I think he did a fine job with it, but
yeah.
Tell me I would have done a better job in The Notebook.
Yeah. I think Rian Johnson does really do a lot of exploration in Last Jedi. I just don't think he has the support of anybody else at Disney or at Lucasfilm or who is involved with this. And then, Abrams shows up and makes what I don't think is a very good movie, but was a very financially viable movie. And it came out on time and everybody showed up and it made money. And with those 3 films, we open up the gates for... mostly Dave Filoni, a few other people, but I'm really going to put it all on Dave Filoni, who is now the head of Star Wars, essentially, to do this amazing thing he's done.
And that gave us an incredible Billy D. Williams interview where he said that he's a white trans woman. Kevo.
No, not what he said. He said he was gender fluid because he was very, very, very confused. And I really... and we will eventually get into a much lengthier debate, I'm sure, about our feelings about Star Wars. But I think something we definitely agree on is what you said was the bottom line of Rise of Skywalker, which is its ultimate goal and accomplishment is that it kicked open the door for what Star Wars is.
Yeah.
For the first 2 trilogies, there was, like you were saying with the Filoni or with the Kevin Feige, there was George Lucas, and for better or for worse, that was a guiding figure. I feel like for the prequels, it was in a lot of ways for worse, but then you get more people working on them. You get Dave Filoni building on what the prequels were and building more things. And in a lot of ways, the sequel trilogy wasn't even so much about what the sequel trilogy turned out to be, but the potential the sequel trilogy built for Star Wars as a universe. The exact movie of Rise of Skywalker isn't as important as what it means for
finishing
that match.
Yep.
What it means, what it means for
playset.
Yeah, it really needed to finish the hat and close up what is, I think, a very important, just 9-episode story that so many things can build out of. And so now there are so many things that you can do. Dave Filoni has that ground to be able to build out of. Any number of creators have that ground to be able to build out of and turn Star Wars into this wider franchise that isn't just books, which... Sure, what can't be just books?
Well, and I think Star Wars made the transition to not just films, much better than the MCU did. And it's a weird thing to see because it seems like they felt that the wisdom was not there for these two properties in the same way. Like, of course, the MCU has to be films, and I don't know about this WandaVision business. I guess we'll try it, but seems like a bad idea. Like, for years, it just seemed like all of the Disney Plus shows were like, I guess we'll do this, but I don't want to. Where with Star Wars, it was like, we cannot produce content that is not the movies fast enough. And maybe it's like a toys thing. Maybe it's I don't know what it is, but they started making some of their best work since the original trilogy once Rise of Skywalker ended and we opened up to all these shows. And there have been a couple great movies here and there, but like what we're really talking about is Obi-Wan, Andor, Ahsoka, all of these shows that have changed the game for Star Wars, and I think shown us that like trying to contain the galaxy far, far away in 3-hour segments every few years just wasn't working. And the way we're doing it now is working fantastic. So it's just fantastic to see.
Yeah.
Just like once upon a time, there was only one season of one country having a drag race. And now
once upon a time,
there's a million seasons of a million countries having a million drag racists. Wait. But no, I am so excited to say that, if you look back at 2010, there was but a season of Drag Race. And as of January 2010, there was one season because this is all by January 1st. So there's I had to read you, wrote you. You're the Roxyverse.
That is the worst.
Pull that wig off. Show us the other wig.
You're Tatiana's unused verse.
I just really think it's incredible that Drag Race has come so far in so little time. Jonah, when did you jump in on Drag Race? And what is it like for you watching this historic, meteoric, transformic rise of Skywalker?
I did not start Drag Race until season 7 was airing. Season 7 was the first season I watched live. I spent the summer before that season aired, just at literally the tail end of the finale of season 6. I kind of discovered Drag Race and I was like, what is this? I have to watch this. The first season I watched...
the summer after junior year.
Yes. I watched season 4. Actually, no, I had to start before that. I think I started before that, but season 7 was still the first season I watched live because I didn't really understand what was going on. Anyway, the timeline is finicky. But this was back when you used to be able to watch every season except for season 1 back on Logo, and it was free to watch. Now you have to find a subscription to pay for it, and you have to use VH1. Good times back then, before everybody decided to monetize everything. Haha. Oh boy. But season 1. When season 1 was airing, I was not aware of Drag Race at all. I kind of knew who RuPaul was, but it wasn't really because at that point when I was, figuring out my sexuality, figuring about those things about me, it was a very shameful period where I was like, no, I'm not gay. I don't do anything gay. I don't like men. No, nothing about this. I can watch anything gay. And then cut to me, rewatching the SVU that had Ice-T's gay son in it because it was a gay character that I had to latch onto. Yeah. But as far as what season 1 of Drag Race represents, literally nobody involved knew what the juggernaut it was going to be in terms of culture at that point. Drag Race season 1 truly was kind of just meant to be RuPaul's version of America's Next Top Model. And you see it in the way that a lot of season 1 is judged and what the criteria of a lot of things that they talk about are. It really took actually a decent amount of time for Drag Race to kind of find its footing on what its format is, what it does, what it's meant to be. However, we have to give props to every single one of those season 1 girls who essentially paved the way of saying, no, we could do drag on TV. It's not just RuPaul. There's room for all of us. everybody here could be on TV. It also gave us Tammy Brown, and we should all be thankful every day that we get to see Tammy Brown on TV in some capacity.
You know,
She'll spin your head round and round.
think about how so much of drag's visual understanding in the cultural was things like Birdcage. You know, when I think of famous drag queens, I don't think Robin Williams, Nathan Lane, Hank Azaria. Like, those aren't the names that come to mind. So this idea that, you know, this cultural shift around this one person who dared to tell Jan Brady, girl, you better work. You know what I mean? Like, it is so important that we recognize that RuPaul, for all the shit we give her, we don't give her anything compared to what she fought to get to where she is. We're crumbs on her plate. And she really is a survivor. Like, it's... Man, I would love just a straight remake of Reba with RuPaul.
As Reba?
Ruba.
Yeah,
Ruba.
Ooh, I wanna take you.
Yeah.
If that's not the sitcom acting challenge this season, I'm gonna be pissed.
And Michelle has to play God, why can't I think of her name? BJ.
Well,
Yeah, Barbara Jean.
if I know anything, this season we will be getting a political challenge, and we will have to see who wins the political challenge, because in season 4, season 8, and season 12, every single person who has won the political challenge in that season has won the season.
The Fracken?
Ooh, yes, the
You
frack.
mean the election? Do you mean the election?
No.
No.
Oh, on the season. Okay.
On the season.
Yeah,
I
so
didn't know
Jada
we were doing-
Essence Hall.
I didn't know if we were doing
Jada
groundhog
Essence Hall
shit.
won the
Like,
political, she won the
if
president.
they predicted the president, I don't know.
No, I totally
No.
get what you mean.
No. When they do their political challenge, the winner of that challenge on Drag Race has won the season.
Yeah.
So we will have to see if that trend continues.
So you mean we're going to look over there?
What? Oh, you got me with that. Good.
Look over here.
Confusion. Yeah, I mean, it's wild. The prize is 10 times what it was.
Oh my God.
in 2010.
The prize from 2010 is now each one of these girls' booking fees. I'm barely being funny.
Truly.
How much of it is adjusted for inflation, and how much of it
No.
is actually like?
I mean, we did
really
a jump.
also just that?
We did a jump from 100,000 to 200,000 a couple years ago. So it really
The
has.
season 1 and season 2 were $25,000. Season 3 was 75. Seasons 4 to 13 were 100,000. Season 14, I believe, is 150, and then season 15, as well as this one, are 200,000.
It's you're going to be a millionaire drag queen, baby, and then you're going to give 2/3 of it to Uncle Sam because I am looking out for you. I am Rue, and I have learned my lesson.
And one of those was the runner-up also gets the prize, because I just watched that clip recently of the finale lip sync where she was like, "Oh, and when do you get the prize?"
She's like, you guys are also
Well,
walking away with
one,
money.
Only season 14.
But
No,
still,
yeah.
that was something.
Is
Yes.
Candy
Yeah.
Rose the most second places ever?
She is right
Tied
here.
with Raven.
Well, actually, Raven literally invented modern drag makeup on television, so I
Yes,
think
she did.
she won.
Yeah, she did. So I mean, that's another thing. That was that's in just a little bit.
Oh my God! So then she's second place on that too. Then technically, no one's had more second places than Candy.
No, I mean, you look at the promo image, you look at the makeup. Actually, one of the trailblazers on there, and I don't think
she doesn't get enough credit.
Nina Flowers. Nina Flowers was doing this type of drag that really, even for like what we see on Drag Race, was not seen, and like that is a girl who paints and like.
Can you compare her to somebody for me?
Yeah, but
she just had. It's a very almost distinct, very
Nina Bonina. Bonina. I would
very severe, very heavy like makeup skill,
artistic.
Like
you might look at it at first and say clown, but then you see that the details are all exaggerated womanhood, but painted like like clown makeup, not like I'm just trying to do a little rouge on the cheeks and a little highlight. Incredible talent. I mean, this is the most obvious one in terms of like Each season just got a little bit better and a little bit better, and we added this thing and we added these girls, and we had to do a split finale. Yeah, they're not all better, but there's something added every year.
There's a line of best fit.
Whether season 1 had a Vaseline filter on the cameras,
right?
They did not have money. They were literally filming in a basement.
I only mean that, like, I think it's 10 and 12 that I think are like hoops down, even if I love the winners.
Yeah, I mean, there are seasons that I don't think are as good as the season before, but like the workroom gets bigger that year. The prize money goes up. There's more girls. It goes to MTV. Each year something has changed for the more on the show, whatever it is.
For the better.
This actually, looking at 15 into 16, this kind of does seem like one of the more lateral moves, even insofar as like it feels like they found a good formula of girls and picked not dissimilar girls for 16 as like archetypes of the ones from 15, with the exception of Sugar and Spice.
I'm devastated that I don't have the comparison, because I wonder if I would have been this all about. I mean, because I was instantly about Sasha Colby. I didn't call everybody right that season, but I was really like any person with a pair of eyes and ears, was like, oh wow.
Well, and I do like Saphira comes off with that exact same energy. Yeah. Like I do feel like the first challenge she's going to say that thing of like, sometimes you just let the kids fight it out and then mother comes and cleans it up. That was like, that's when I knew Sasha Colby was going to win. And I feel like Saphira she was just doing her own thing. She was like, I already know I'm going to be fine, so I will just let them do their... And I feel like Saphira has that same energy. I feel like I'm hoping she'll do that same thing, because the other way it can go is Tamisha Iman.
Tamisha Iman, one of the greatest drag performers in the history of the world. And yes, I said what I said.
Truly. So yeah, I mean, just this is a great one to watch 13 years pass and things just elevate. And you see the entire cultural landscape around it change too, in good and bad ways. People love drag queens more than ever, but with a bigger audience, people are insane to drag queens more than ever.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah.
Then we're going to have to move to Canada.
Yeah, then we got to go.
But, my question for you guys is...
Okay, Canada.
So what? And I mean this like actually, the woman she is now, I actually am a big Candy Muse fan now. But Candy Muse was kind of like a sloppy mess when she started on the show. She was looking for fights. And as somebody who has played in some really fucking scary bars, I know what a bitch looking for a fight after a show looks like. And, but I think about Sasha Velour, and I think about how Sasha Velour kind of walks into every room like she's a little bit disappointed it's not the MoMA. And like, I love Sasha Velour ultimately. I think I love everything I've ever seen of her on YouTube way more than I love anything she ever showed on Drag Race. But, do you think in season 1 there was room for that dichotomy, a girl who's so real like a Candy Muse and a girl who is pretty much a Van Gogh painting like Sasha Velour, who I don't mean is disfigured, I mean is a beautiful form of personal art?
Yes to Candy, no to Sasha. At that point, you look at until season 4, this idea of drag was very narrow and strict, defined by the parameters of the illusion of how well do you pass as a woman. And I have to phrase it that way because that's kind of
it's a female illusion until
an anachronistic you're not
until people started yelling.
Yeah.
Until people started yelling at RuPaul about trans contestants, her line was essentially, women can't be on the show because this is a show about the female illusion and they have too much of an advantage.
What's my favorite English Muppet's name?
Oh, yeah. The lesbian.
The woman who competed and did
from
well.
UK.
Oh, Victoria Stone.
Victoria Stone.
Victoria Stone.
The greatest things
I've ever seen. It's delicious because it's food.
An international drag race. What a phenomenal performer.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, Jonah, keep going.
And it really, and their style of drag, even comparative to the things you see, on Dragula, still almost doesn't compare to the things that you can find in these very alternative artsy bars and club spaces. It wasn't until the season 4 winner that kind of did a little bit more weird and kooky And that's when people were like, oh wait, okay, this is also a part of drag. We should be expanding our definition of what we define drag as. And even Jinx talks about it until season 4, when the season 4 winner won. Jinx was like, oh, okay, now I think I'm ready to...
No, season 4's winner is Sharon Needles, right?
Yeah.
And then season 3 is
Raja.
Raja. Season 2 is Bret Michaels.
No, is...
Tyra Sanchez.
James Saint. James.
Bret won, All Stars won. I mean...
Chad Michaels won.
Oh my God, I said Bret Michaels. Yep. That's
Chad Michael Murray.
Poison.
Morgan McMichael's drag mom.
Oh my God.
Morgan McMichael's Murray.
But to answer your specific question, Candy is reminiscent of these earlier seasons because during this time, TK talked about it, Twitter wasn't this huge linchpin mob kind of deal of this social court. It wasn't like the fandom of people who watched Drag Race were just people who liked drag or knew these queens. It was not the global phenomena. So you didn't have these people edit themselves in a way that's, I'm not going to say anything bad. I'm not going to pick this fight. This was just people they saw on camera, very reminiscent of, that fight you showed me for like the real world where we would never see like that again.
He's referring to the
the Dan and Melissa.
Yes.
It is like literally 2/3 of my personality.
Yes.
If you see that today, it is someone doing that on purpose, knowing they are going to get in trouble, looking for trouble. But
and the fact of the matter is, Candy was doing it on purpose when she was on Drag Race, and she did know that she would get the reaction that she got. But I think if Candy existed in her form at that time when they were casting season 1, she would have gone on there as that same type of person, just less aware of the repercussions of behaving the way she would naturally.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't this idea of it, because also at that point Drag Race really wasn't that popular.
Yeah, nobody would.
I watched one show on Logo. And when I tell you why I watched it, you will all laugh at me. I watched Noah's Ark because Michelle Ndegeocello scored the fucking thing.
There you go. I love to see it.
In '98, she tore up Lilith Fair.
But someone like Sasha Velour would never have been considered. Velour, even the sanitized version of what Sasha Velour does and does in a lot of her shows, and the weird and artsy and the alternative that Sasha Velour gets, is the sanitized version we got for season 9 is still nowhere near enough for the early seasons.
Even the School of Athens would have turned away Rembrandt.
Alaska didn't make it on until season 5 because she was too avant-garde.
Saphira said she auditioned 11 fucking times.
Yeah. I mean, some people don't get it because it's just not their time, but Alaska specifically was...
Listen, pageant queens now.
Was an out there type.
Yes.
And so despite having auditioned every year, I think we consider Alaska, for all of her art aspirations, much less that than Sasha Velour. So, it just kind of goes to show, like, that's just not who they would have put on.
No.
But, I feel like thinking about it and looking at it, one of the things I sort of wonder is if Canada had been working a little more parallel to this, I think they would have had a lot of these more alternative queens. I think Canada tends to be... Yeah, you're welcome. I think Canada tends to be a lot braver. And I love that about Canada. That doesn't apply to this week's episode, though, which was just insanity. And there's not a ton. It's absolutely beautiful. There's not a ton to say. Like, it was just a wardrobe challenge, and we will talk about it for a second. But the entire thing that we're here to talk about is Melinda Vargas' breakdown.
If you have ever been in an after-school program, and we've all been in that after-school program that's like a little bit extreme, that even the kids trying to go to Princeton are like, this is delicate. Do not fuck this up, right? And we've all seen that kid have that meltdown the night of the presentation. Melinda, you are literally one of the most unbelievably handsome contestants I have ever seen in an international drag race season. And I say that because the amount of work the American girls have had done is extreme. Your talent is incredible. Your drag doesn't it's not my thing necessarily, but girl, you have presented some of the sloppiest drama I have seen since the last days of Amy Winehouse. This is something else.
And as a general boilerplate, we will not stand for any slander against Melinda.
Nope.
She gave us amazing TV.
Yup.
Also, we have to recognize they are in this pressure cooker. It is very stressful to be there. This is something that they absolutely want.
Yep.
And
she wasn't mean. Wasn't mean.
It was mean to Melinda.
She was mean to Melinda.
It's that moment where Miranda says, when Carrie says, "Oh God, I'm so stupid," and Miranda says, "Hey, stop talking about my friend like that." It literally changed my life. I called a bunch of my female friends and was like, "Girl, can we start saying this to each other?" And they were all like, "If you stop calling us girl."
I think, we have seen fights, or we've seen meltdowns with people where we still do want to love them, because the fact of the matter is, no matter how horrible somebody is on Drag Race, you kind of know that the dog pile of what they could get in the real world and online regarding that moment is so horrible and disgusting that, like, unless the person stands up and is like, I actually think Hitler is aspirational, no matter what, I'm going to be like, there you go. No matter what, I'm going to be like, give the person a break. This is such a terrible, it's such a vulnerable moment. You never know how it's going to end up.
I would love to see every harsh critic in the same situation and see how they handled themselves.
Precisely.
And as a note, during her meltdown, she was talking about how, back home, she's never gotten critiques and comments like this on her fashion, on anything like that. And they laughed, which I'm going to be honest, I might have laughed as well.
Yeah.
But also in that moment where she's already feeling vulnerable, she was being serious. This is her drag style. This is what she likes. And it's not what they're looking for. It's not going to be enough. And that's where the spiral happened.
Exactly.
So we everybody here on the show loves you, Melinda. You had a human moment.
Melinda would kill it on Down Under because the judges are looking for something really, really different. It's not that Canada is mean. They're just different judges. I think Melinda's rawness would be really loved on Down Under. It's just not Canada's play.
I think Canada feels a way about not being US, and I think maybe that comes out in the contestants sometimes.
And ultimately, here's the fact of the matter. The judges asked for something that she didn't deliver 3 times. And that is a fact. It sucks. I'm not saying that makes her a bad drag queen. You could be a phenomenal drag queen and just not be great at executing drag race challenges. That happens all the time. She has not hit the assignment every time, and they have valid reasons why she hasn't. And
we talk about that on this show a lot too.
Yeah.
So, yes.
And that can be really maddening too, to be like, I know I'm not stupid. I know that I can hear what they're saying and I am trying, and somehow I'm still missing it. That is so frustrating. I think that's an experience we all have in work, in education, and everything we do, where, we're given an assignment. It doesn't seem hard to us. We're not trying. And what we get back is like, nope, you missed it. In creative fields, especially. And
it's that blind reaction. It's that, we all have that paper.
We've all absolutely been there.
Yep.
The only thing that sucks is that she went so far as to say fuck the judges, which I get. Again, that's another thing where I'm like, if somebody is telling me I did a bad job, part of me is always going to be like, fuck you, you're doing a bad job. It sucks that she said it out loud. It got caught on camera and got edited into the moment. It just is unfortunate because, again, there's a dog pile of people who are going to be like, well, she said fuck the judges, so she should be burned at the stake. And it just is a crappy part of the Drag Race fame cycle and all reality TV fame cycle, where we do maybe sometimes have room for a breakdown, but it better be the perfect breakdown. And if it's not, we'll pick apart everything you said that could be wrong about it. a really unfortunate moment at the same time. Like, if you can turn it around and be like, I'm the girl that went fucking nuts one day, you will have people like everybody here who will be like, we're right there with you. We've all screamed.
Lifetime movie and put it on YouTube.
Exactly.
But
I'd like to keep it on, please.
Yeah. To the positive note, congratulations to Kiki Cole.
Earned.
Really
Earned,
deserved, earned. Truly probably one of the best seamstresses and designers we've seen on the show. I mean, from the promo to all of her looks, the fact that she makes them, that's already stunning
and joyful about it.
Yes. And it was also, there is a lot of pressure when it's, we see what you can do. Drag Race, they give you very bad resources and not a lot of time, and she was able to turn it out. And I know there could already be a lot of pressure. I really think back to season 4, Chad Michaels, who's known for doing Cher and did Cher for Snatch Game, and Rue saying, but did she take enough of the risk if this is something that she can do? And at the time, Ross Matthews, who was a guest judge and not one of the main judges, saying, no, she had everything to lose, because if you don't do well at what you claim you're the best at,
yep,
what does that reflect about you? So truly amazing, stunning. Also made the best choice for the bottom 2.
Jesus Christ.
Over essentially nothing. Was so funny, to the point where them saying, no, don't save me, put me in the bottom, I want to send her. It was so good, because they were just at a point where they were like, they just didn't care. They were so mad and hate, like, they in that moment were so angry at one another. There's also a talking head where Amy says, I don't have time for hate in my heart. But Nira, she's a fucking bitch, was the funniest thing in the entire world. I kept repeating it.
I need to be clear with you all. Amy Yonsei would literally be a Final Fantasy party member. You guys do not understand. She gives such legitimate protagonist energy.
Yeah, I see it.
Everything she says, she is the center of her own universe. And if you play that right, you become the center of whatever universe you're in. I don't know that she's a winner, but she is an absolute protagonist.
Sure, Amy, we truly stan.
I have stand her since episode 1.
All about it. Absolutely love. She makes great confessionals. I love that she's like, no, I'm not backing down. Nope. I will not. You will. Oh, also, you might want to wear your costumes. Ripping. You might want to wear a panty. I am wearing a panty. Oh, you're wearing a panty. Work. Was just.
TK, last week you said, I want to know why it is that you like a queen who says, I just tell it to you straight. And sometimes you hate a queen who says, I just tell it to you straight. It's when it looks like I can literally tell that it cracks. When it looks like you might even know when you're a bitch, it's a problem, but you're going to let this one go. I don't think Amy Yonsei even once questions one fucking thing she says. And for me, that's the sales pitch, and that's the buy. That I never think Amy Yonsei thinks twice. So then the things I think that are problematic would then be amoral, not immoral. She never believes she's hurting people. She just believes she's doing. That, for me, that's reality gold. Valentina doesn't think about other people enough to think she's hurting them. That is television platinum.
Diamond.
I accept it. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like this whole thing was iconic from start to finish, starting with Melinda, ending with the lip sync. I really do wonder about the double save. Seems like an odd time. What do you have? You got the info?
It was truly.
We were shouting for it.
Well, you might have been. Props to Nira. Nira really.
I thought Nira was definitely saved, and Amy Yonsei was not.
Because I feel bad. It looked a little bit like Amy just learned that the song was going to be that right before she got on stage. She really didn't know the words. Nira was literally pirouetting, dancing, splitting, doing literally every trick in the book.
With that much filler in her face, I'm not even being mean. Like,
really, medically,
trouble making it look like they are enunciating, which is why. Please remind me. I can't think of her name. She was, oh my God, season 5. I love her.
Detox?
Janet impersonator.
Oh, Coco.
Coco.
When Coco did Cold Hearted Snake, she points to her mouth.
Yeah. Because she's got everything. Yeah.
Every syllable.
Yeah.
Mira has such big lips. It could be a struggle. I knew every word by reading her mouth. That is a woman who says, I don't care how much filler I've got. I'm putting on a show.
The only reason Amy got a huge leg up for me where I was like, she can stay, was that when they got to the part, she was the one who did the part of the dance.
Yeah.
She knew she got the assignment 100%. And I was very disappointed in Nira for missing it. If you're going to do that song, you're going to lip sync to that song. That is the one move you need to be able to do.
This was so the lip sync song was "Come Through" by Priyanka featuring Lemon. One of the most amazing, not only songs, one of the most amazing Drag Race music videos that has ever come from a Drag Race alumnus.
A daily play for me.
Point blank, period, cut and dry. This was the first time we've ever gotten a drag girl song as a
which actually now to me was the biggest revelation of the episode that has never happened before.
Okay, Mr. Brad, I am so handsome in a nerdy Giles kind of way, and wait for this Gorecki.
I hate him.
I know it's Gorecki.
We all hate him. That's not the point.
Born to be Brad.
He's so beautiful. It looked like he had never danced to music by a non-white person before, and I know that's not the case. They did him dirty in the edit of him kind of moving along. They did
it exactly right.
No,
it was him dancing to. It was documentary style. That's just who he is in his heart.
It was cruel. Season 1 versus season 10 would be awesome. Awful.
One of the things I really love about Canada's Drag Race is I don't know if it's because of just Canada in general. Canada licenses the songs for longer, so we actually get much longer lip syncs. We literally got the full song. This was actually just the full song, which made me very happy because this was one of my favorite songs.
We better get a full Nelly Furtado song beginning to end when my goddess Nelly Furtado, the absolute queen of my life.
But as we were saying, Nira definitely absolutely did win. Amy was saved because I think Melinda should have been in the bottom and was probably expected to go home by production, everybody. And Kiki saying, no, I want to prove to you that you aren't a joke, that you are serious and you deserve to be here, and saving her. They were like, well, there go our plans. So we kind of have to, I also think it was for the drama going into next week because it's unresolved. It is now unresolved.
And my one question is it possible that production had some kind of heads up that something is coming? Like maybe Melinda definitely is leaving and they were like, can you stay through this episode and you can walk out next episode? I'm only curious because it's very difficult to do a double save like that. And I do not feel this was an earned one.
No, that's an option choice.
If I can just make a point about it, the value of a spreadsheet. If you're asking me, okay, I guess I'm going to switch from spreadsheets. If you're asking me the understanding of a standard deviation based on 3 inputs, US, UK, down under, I can use a triple input to predict a commonality across outputs. I can understand what a Rue, Michelle, Carson, and Ross decision looks like week in and week out. Because essentially Reese is kind of just playing the role. And, our UK correspondents, Graham and Alan, are essentially doing the same thing. But the cast of Canada has only had 4 seasons to really form this particular bond. Sometimes guessing their judgments is just a little bit more difficult.
To add on to your point of difficulty guessing the judgments, UK, Down Under, and US, RuPaul, along with production, are the only people who make decisions.
True.
Yeah.
RuPaul gets the final say. She says, fuck everybody else. This is my show. I will do what I want. Canada, Brooke does not hold that power. Brooke, Tracy, and Brad all have equal voting power when it comes to what they want to happen.
That's a great perspective.
They all get an equal 1/3 vote. So you now have situations where it's potentially 2/3 thought this person should have won, and 1/3 should have thought this person should have won. Or you have all 3 vote together, or they all can't agree. And it is a situation like that, I think.
Well, I was going to say it feels highly unlikely to me that all three wanted to save them. So I'm interested. I would also wonder if production was looking at things and it will have to do with how we end and how many contestants we have at the finale. And what the numbers are in terms of who has to be eliminated when. This just seemed like a very odd double save. Go ahead.
I was going to say, because I was just counting when Kevo had all the queens up. They have 11 this season, which I think is one less than the normal amount. Because they tend to like to do a top 4.
Yeah.
So you need, by episode 9, you still need 5 people.
Yeah.
So they still kind of have one episode. The first episode wasn't an elimination challenge.
Yeah.
So they have an episode kind of baked in to be able to do a double save. But I do agree, it is a weird place for, not because they both killed the lip sync,
right,
but because it seems like a production choice.
Yeah. And I it seems like maybe production was like, if you keep both of them on, they're probably going to scream at each other again a few more times, which is good for
I also really respect cutting the potential double save and doing it early and not leaving it lingering and having us guessing, because we probably would have speculated that what they would have needed might have necessitated that down the line, and instead get it out of the way now.
All right.
Agreed.
So I'm going to break in and I'm going to make a production decision. And I just want us to all go through and say the queen that we are the most excited about from Canada before we move on to our last 2 scripted shows. I just want to say, like, Kit and Caboodle, yes, I am famous for being in love with older men. And Kit and Caboodle is, like, literally one of the most handsome older men in the history of reality TV. Don't get me wrong. But I'm also a person who emotionally resonates with people who ain't done yet. And God, what a beautiful person. Like, maybe have read every one of her tweets. And if you look at her birthday tweet from her 58th birthday, you can see her 50th birthday photo shoot, which is some Dirk Caber God shit. But
Dallas Steele.
Woof. But I think Kit and Caboodle represents something that I've forgotten how much I love. I think Kit and Caboodle is a Murphy Brown in a world full of Big Bang theories. I just think, like, Kit and Caboodle is a special kind of classy that you see once in a generation. Even, 30 years ago, she would have been a once in a generation classiness. It has nothing to do with her age. The fact that she has aged so beautifully is a lovely statement, but Kit and Caboodle, I want to see you make it to the top 3. Win or not, I think you've made an impact on me. And I want to see more older queens. I want to see Golden Drag Race. If bachelors can have functioning dicks after 60, I think Drag Race can have functioning queens after 40.
And I want that, but I also want more diversity of age in the main show as well. But yes.
Absolutely. So, guys, also, second place has to go to Denim, who has the absolute greatest personality for any talking head on any show ever. Denim just knows how to make everything sound like it's going to be a soundbite. And I love that.
Can I think on this answer and maybe go last, but just talk about how excited I am also for next week, where we get a clip from Brooke going, cut, no, cut the track.
You have talked about that so much that it would be cruel to stop you.
I'm just so far, Canada's done a very good job of keeping me hooked and wanting to watch the next episode.
Oh, absolutely. This season has been engaging and I guess anticipatory in terms of, like, they've given us some illusions about what's going to come. I really vibe with it. I want to see what happens next week. TK, who's your girl?
Oh gosh, I don't know right now. It's really in a state of flux.
I feel 17-year-old you would have totally dated Girlfriend Experience.
I really love her a lot.
Too late though.
Yeah, she's gone, so that's a problem. I mean, I'm seeing so much potential from Kiki Ko, and Kit and Caboodle. I mean, there's just a lot there. But I think Aurora Matrix is really phenomenal. I've decided that Denim is to Gottmik as Azrael is to Crowley on Good Omens.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I love that. Get Tori to watch Drag Race. Do it.
So I just want to put that out there. I want everybody to think about that a lot.
I'm like the one person who's read Good Omens and not seen the show, so that's just a different kind of amazing for me.
Yes.
Who are you talking to? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think they're all incredibly talented. What's her name? God, pull the list up again.
Oh my God, load slower. There you go.
Luna Dubois had some real moments this episode.
Gorgeous face,
and really, I don't know. This is a strong cast. Near enough. I
dance to it.
I was very impressed with how Near Enough held her own, both in the lip sync, but also in the fight. I would have thought that she would not be able to stand up to an Amy Yonsei. Yeah, I'm gonna. If you took Kit and Caboodle, so I'm gonna go with Kiki Ko.
Can I just quickly answer, Kevo, and then I would really want to hear your.
No, I'm last, so I want you to go.
So I agree with TK. It's still very early on in the season for me to like really kind of hitch, and this is another really stellar cast that I'm really just kind of falling in love with everybody here. Personally, I'm gonna go with, based off of everything and how I think I'm gonna vibe with them, I'm gonna hitch my wagon to Aurora Matrix.
Good choice.
Yeah, that's an A++ choice. Aurora Matrix hasn't just shown herself to be incredibly competitive, but she's shown herself to have that sort of personality that allows you to thrive on an international and like versus the world season. Lemon might not have done well in Canada, but Lemon versus the world, that's definitely a character worth rooting for. And Aurora Matrix already has that sort of Lemon versus the world positive energy. She could go really far.
People online call Near a dark lemon.
That is 100% accurate. I've been thinking it the whole time. And Nico, I think you're right. I don't think Aurora is. I don't think she is likely to be in the top at the end of the season. But I do think she is really likely to be one of those queens that we see multiple times and who levels up by like orders of magnitude each time we see her again.
Kevo, you said you wanted to go last on this, so drag us down.
My answer is, in the first place, I am not unbelievably overwhelmed with the contestants that we have remaining. I'm disappointed that CC Superstar was cut so early. I wasn't necessarily pegging her to win, but the girlfriend experience being cut so early when I felt like she could have given us a lot of entertainment this season was disappointing. And I am sorry to say that I believe I have also fallen into an unfortunate trap that was the inevitable possibility of what they did. And the queen that I am most excited about this season is the next season of the main show, which they have already announced, already told us the queens for. I already have queens that I'm excited for. I'm already geared up for our coverage, which is going to start probably immediately. And as much as I'm going to continue to be entertained by Canada through to the end, no, I know the main show's coming back, and I know when it is. And
Kevin and I are going to try and force you guys to do a live watch of the premiere.
Yeah,
it's fucking hard.
At least in some capacity, yeah, I'd love that. That'd be a lot of fun. And so that's sort of where my head already is at, and that is the danger of announcing it while you are still only like a third of the way through Canada. Is that people are going to be distracted by this other shiny thing. Look over there. Except it's the main show. So, like, if it was the other way around, people would actually either be like, oh, who cares? Or be like, okay, good. This is something I have for when the main show is over. This isn't like people are like, oh, good. I have something for when Canada is over. No, this is the main event for most people. And so, yeah, I'm pretty excited for the main event already.
Well, speaking of the main event, JoJo, whenever you are here to talk about Drag Race, you are always the main event. And we cannot wait to talk more about the season of Canada with you. It feels weird that we don't have a amazing queened but lackluster performance season of UK to kind of gripe about. But we almost have our new season of Drag Race to talk about, Sweet 16, and I can't wait. But until then, where can everybody find you online?
You can find me online at my handle at Peak Jonah. That's Peak.
All right, now get out of here, you filthy animal.
I'm scramming.
Very slowly.
He did sneak out really efficiently, though. All right, so let's talk about our remaining scripted shows. I'll admit, one of the things that occasionally throws me off about trying to watch Beacon 23 week to week is I am so distracted by the lore, I sometimes have trouble focusing on the individual episode. However, nothing since... Oh, look at that handsome little guy over there.
Yeah.
Who just popped into Kevo's video. Nothing since Stephen Root's breathtaking and Emmy-nominated appearance on West Wing could have prepared me for Stephen Root's breathtaking and sure to be, sure will be Emmy-nominated appearance on Beacon 23. That's Jimmy James right there, and he is amazing at 70.
But do you know what's unfortunate? Yeah, that's Jimmy James right there, because I searched Beacon 23 Stephen Root, Beacon 23 Solomon, and frankly, it's my birthday. I didn't really have time for a deep dive to get screen caps for Beacon 23. I was very surprised that there wasn't really anything in terms of like promotional images talking about this, the way that there was last week when we had Barbara Hershey, because this isn't something I made, it's something I scraped off the internet. So I was really disappointed that there wasn't anything more in terms of like fervor or excitement the same way, because I think he did a great job, and I think he is a phenomenal veteran character actor. And it is something that after having this appearance from Barbara Hershey and now this, I'm excited to see what's going to come in the next episode even more. Yeah,
I completely agree. The way that they are building this thing non-linearly, piece by piece, that we are still kind of trapped in this constant state of not really knowing what's going on and feeling like there is a bigger picture, a really obvious bigger picture just out of frame that we can't catch. But also that none of the characters are catching it either. It's not like they know and we don't.
Yeah.
And that it's like I'm always screaming at them like he's right behind you, but I actually don't know if he's right behind them. I know he's somewhere. I know there's something going on. I know they need to keep looking. I know that like the not just the answers, but like the danger and the fact that something so is not right is there, and they need to stop and acknowledge it, and they need to go like, this is all so wrong. We've got to completely reset and like rethink how we're doing things. And the tension of the fact that they're never doing that is so fascinating. But then you go into Barbara Hershey and immediately you're like, okay, that dude is right behind you. And he does definitely want to kill you. And there's more going on here. And to do the same thing again with a new character, not so far in the past, and somebody we've referenced, it's really fascinating. The layers that the show is building up. We did get like a really huge push into the show lore at the end of the most recent episode.
Talking rocks,
but also rocks that, assemble into weird geometric, biblically accurate angel shapes. I'm excited to see where it goes. This is just a really cool show. I ended up not finishing Silo, which is also based on a Hugh Howey book, as Beacon 23 is, because I decided to go back and read the books. But this has me really excited to go back and finish Silo, because I think Hugh Howey writes really great source material, and has just a fascinating sense of the abject darkness of humanity, where he doesn't actually always go for the like, humans are so cruel, everybody's a bastard, everybody is terrible. And it's more just like, life is really tough. and you wouldn't.
Complicated.
Yeah, and you wouldn't believe where things go when things get tough, which they inevitably will. And sometimes it really just is like nature got really tough on you and you had to figure out what to do. But the fact that Lena Headey and, the fact that her character seems to, at some level, have some really deep degree of caring, the same way that Barbara Hershey did, says to me that this isn't all about just the human condition being terrible. It's about the human condition in the face of true adversity, like just nihilistic adversity, the expanse of space. And it's just great. It's really cool.
Well, and you mentioned that one of the things that makes Beacon 23 a unique entity is that it is adapted from a successful source material, but it's a successful source material that was successful within its own realm and not necessarily within pop media at large, such that we, avid consumers of sci-fi, by the rest of the 2 hours of this episode, as as they will attest, don't really know what to expect with Beacon 23. And yet Monarch plays a similar other side of that same coin. We have the idea that Monarch is based on the world of monsters, Godzilla, King Kong, and more. It's a world that we're all familiar with by simple virtue of, Kanye, Jay-Z, and Nicki all pulling up in the monster automobile gangsta. You know what I mean? We know these characters simply by pop culture's obsession with them. And yet there is something refreshing and invigorating about each viewing of Monarch. Sometimes I do think, yeah, it is kind of based on the same silly contrivances that all works by the incredible Matt Fraction often are, but they're the sorts of accepted contrivances that allow me to enjoy a material. I think that this show has one of the best casts. They are instantly lovable. I would follow this cast into hell in a very sexy way, but I would also follow them into hell in a very pure way. I think what they have crafted here are three people who are interesting no matter the world. So by cross-sectioning them with a fascinating world, you're creating a playscape that is unlike anything else on TV, even when it is not the most successful.
I very much agree, first of all, with the idea that I would follow the main three into hell. I mean, it's really... And it's such an earned journey that we did spend, I thought, exactly enough time with the backstory of like these two people just found out they were siblings and have been thrust into something, and bringing in the character of May, who has a past with Kentaro, but then you started to notice it last episode when May was close to death and Kate came to her like they were best friends because the bond was already there, because they had already been in a plane crash and attacked by
the anxiety talk down.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, terrific.
That is the moment where like this guy had already shown up to try and kill them, so now they are best friends. That's done. When this guy shows up to eat you, you are now best friends with whoever was there. That is a bond for life. And
on some level, at least, yeah.
Well, but then we follow up this episode with now it's Kate who needs the talk. And May is there because, now they're bonded for life. Now they are best friends. And Kate and Kentaro are siblings now. They're united in the search for their father, but they've been through something now where the need to care for each other to stay alive has blossomed into we are siblings. And what's craziest about this entire thing is that the moms show up and are immediately like, oh, we are all a family.
So exquisite. You hope that found family narratives
truly
will consider and contextualize, I guess, for lack of a better term, like genetic family.
Well, because it's never, found family is like some random lady shows up and now she's your mom.
Right. This is more like discovered family.
Right. That Kentaro's mom holds Kate when she's terrified in the subway, and that Kate's mom isn't quite as nurturing, but she immediately is like, well, of course he was having a fucking affair.
I chose not to go to Japan. I could have looked into this.
Yeah.
I wanted to be ignorant to give you a happy life.
Well, and to give me a happy life, I like being alone. And you know, that's by extension, now Kentaro is family, because now we're all in this together. These are all such phenomenal dynamics, and you could get to them 20 different ways if you wanted to. I truly do not hate that we are getting to them via what the fuck are we going to do about the fact that there's Godzillas. I think that's great. I'm perfectly good with that.
Godzilla is so tame compared to the fucking Lovecraftian horrors that they are starting to throw at us.
It's true. And you know what?
One of the things that I loved from this episode too was getting to delve into the horror that was the crater of San Francisco.
Yeah.
And, you know, a joke that people make about the Transformers universe is that Chicago was totaled, and then 2 movies later, it is fine. And if you want your universe to be that cartoon and elastic, that's fine too. But it really feels like with this MonsterVerse, they are trying to, you know, not in an absolutely serious and grim way, portray the reality, but to an extent, like this city was devastated, and how does it affect the world? And I think that even speaks to the sense of found family, that you grab onto each other a lot more readily when you know this is the world you live in.
Godzilla was 2013, and that's still the only really like big notable kaiju attack. That they're still working with that. How many? I mean, like in the MCU, we lost Sokovia entirely. Battle of New York really ought to have entirely destroyed New York. We had the blip, so like that has to have wrecked the planet. And we generally go back and we don't talk about it. And one of my big disappointments with that in the MCU is that I really would like the Damage Control series. And I would like the series about like, well, what is it like living in New York when it is a total mess? Like, I don't need it to be the entire planet has been destroyed, but like, I was always really disappointed that Daredevil was kind of like, I made my money like cleaning up New York a little bit, and like there's bones under it, but we never got to see, like, imagine Daredevil in a Hell's Kitchen affected by the Battle of New York, like really affected by it, where like, it's not a great place to live, and it's kind of dangerous because nobody wants to live there because so much was destroyed. And you do get a bunch of that in Monarch. What they have done with San Francisco is truly like this place that people used to go all the time. We have to sneak into, and we may not make it out alive. Japan, exactly. Japan completely changed, ready for Godzilla attacks. And I love seeing that. And the fact that then plays into the pathos of every character, that we get that moment with Kentaro's mom because they're doing a Godzilla test attack drill.
It goes back to that recurring thing that we've been talking about several times this episode, where there are things that sometimes feel embarrassed to be what they are. It felt like the Netflix Marvel was embarrassed to be part of this bigger superhero universe, whereas this fully embraces the reality of it, for worse, but also like for better, in terms of this is real dramatic storytelling. That Alarm was an amazing story, Nika.
Yeah.
And you know what universe has never seen a massive decline? Drag Race. And you know why? Because Rue is never embarrassed about what Rue loves. She embraces it wholeheartedly in a way that I think Monarch does to some sillier ends, because Rue isn't always dressing up like a giant green dragon. Sometimes she is, you know, dressing up in a face bikini, and we have questions. But for the most part, Rue is trying to be taken a little bit more seriously. When Monarch dives into the extremeness of its illusion, it is, you know, it's a little silly. But I love that it wants to go there. It excites me to be a fan of this. I can't believe that I'm really excited. I mean, yes, I don't think Jack Black is super hot or anything. I think he's brilliant, actually. Anybody who's ever listened to Tenacious D, Tribute, Fuck Her Gently, and I'm just saying, like, the hits are, perfect. So, I really enjoyed his King Kong. I think he's an exquisite actor when he wants to be. But this is not my universe, but to bring it back to news radio, Vicki Lewis was in Godzilla. So that's a really cool touchstone, and I I hate myself, but there's a certain person in this photo who I always think is kind of a hot, sexy monster. I hate myself. I'm so sorry, you guys.
Someone was a better person in the 90s.
Listen,
or at least
we all love Dave Foley, Nico. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, actually,
he needs
Phil
to do more
Hartman.
voice work, though.
Phil Hartman is pretty handsome, actually, legitimately. Not like sexy, not hot, but Phil Hartman is a loss that we should all still be thinking.
I mean, real talk, Joe Rogan.
He's Uncle Hot.
Joe Rogan is so hot here. He is Joey Tribbiani hot. Like, this was a 90s sitcom type, and it works. It is wild to me that this is the same man that appears in my like Instagram shorts 20 times a day that I can't get rid of.
Hey, you know who was originally cast in his role?
I do. I'm just not remembering.
Originally, the role was named Ray and was played by Ray Romano.
Yeah.
Just in the pilot.
Different world.
Yeah.
I really would have loved Phil Hartman's Mrs. Doubtfire, to be really honest with you. That would have been a really beautiful thing. Anyway,
I see it.
I love Monarch. It is maybe the thing I am most excited to watch each week. I'm excited for it like an episode of Press Your Luck. It is a silly good time. I think that the Russell men play I kind of like, I guess I do want to think of it in this Thomas Kincaid, Norman Rockwell sort of like they're trading notes over the phone, but I don't know.
I think you are supposed to think of it that way. I think that is the appeal, because otherwise you just get a cheap actor for the kid.
Yes,
you know what I mean. Nobody cares. Nobody cares except for the appeal of literally thinking stuff like that to yourself, and that's fine. That's good stunt casting. And nobody heard about this and put out a statement being like, that's not who he's playing. So like this one went off without a hitch. It's good.
So, I love Monarch. I love this every week. Kevo, it is one of the things that we have the most fun watching every week together. We laugh, we shout. It's a sexy, silly, fun adventure show. I hope everybody can replace the sort of like magic that things like Jungle Cruise and even maybe Jumanji are meant to capture with things like Monarch that do offer you that sort of chance to experience a world you're not as familiar with, but by doing it so inclusively, you're avoiding any sort of creepy appropriation and you're making sure that the voices here are the voices that are shaping the story. So for me, a guy who grew up on the Indiana Jones style adventure movie, I think Monarch replaces that in an instant. So I look forward to this every week and can't wait to catch up on the Monsterverse. But speaking of monsters, this guy went up a monster long episode out of nowhere. But other monsters. It is a birthday monster today. Kevo, my amazing husband, the other half of my home life, the part of my brain that makes sure I remember to put my pants on before I leave and don't walk around looking like the 15th Doctor. It is your amazing birthday today, and every one of us is so grateful, not just for your friendship and your love and production, but for the things you choose to be, even when you're not around us. It is so wonderful to know you're out there in the universe at all times, and we love you.
We sure do.
Thanks.
But we would not have had this amazing Doctor Who centric episode without you. And it is so wonderful that you managed to make Tom. Doctor Who not just a part of. Oh, hey, Tom, thanks for watching. And happy birthday from Tom, right? Because we're supposed to read the comments. But it's so wonderful that we have such a diverse spectrum of shows like Drag Race from TK and Jonah to Doctor Who from you. And I just love what we have managed to make this show become in the last year. You had missed out on saying it 2 weeks ago that it was our 1 year anniversary. So it's birthdays all around. It's your birthday. It's the show's birthday. It's a then and now kind of day. And to Jillian on his 38th birthday, I love you very much.
I love you very much. And I love what we do. I love our show. I love this show. And so the fact that there was a regeneration on my birthday is really cool. The fact that it's close enough. It's nebulous. The fact that we are in this new era of Doctor Who is really awesome. And I'm excited for us to continue covering it on this show and what this show has become. I love our team. This was a really cool way to spend my birthday. For sure, I'm glad that we got to spend my birthday with TK, even though it is remote. And I love all the stuff that we do, so definitely check out a lot of our other coverage. You can check out the first round of coverage that we did on the Doctor Who premiere, The Doctor Donna Returns. You can see a whole bunch of awesome holiday coverage that we've been doing, like our holiday marathons that we did yesterday, the holiday toys showdown that we did last week, now that's what I call Xmas Music Showdown the week before.
The longest broadcast in life history. It's a 3:11 concert.
That was a long one. That was a very long one. We had this week more of our amazing drag coverage, where we covered the reveal of the season 16 queens. So check that out. We had the end of UK, the beginning of Canada, which we still have our ongoing coverage of. We're going to continue covering Glam Slam, whatever this is going to turn out to be. And of course, we also still have our ongoing comic coverage, where we just did a whole history of the Ghost Riders. That was really cool. And there are some really awesome shorts that we've developed from it so far. So definitely check that out. And yeah, I just love what we do. I love what we do. I love making this stuff, and I love you guys. And this was a lot of fun today. So you can find most of what I do on here. But other than that, you can find me on the socials at Kev O'Reilly. That's KEVOREALLY. And Teak, how about you, sir?
You can find me at TK Elemental. Nico, how about you?
Well, you guys can find me all over the socials at Nico Action. That's my Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, SoundCloud, and more. What you're listening to tonight is my Tchaikovsky. It's my first ever attempt at working on a guy who is, in just like one of the most important composers of all time. And I was so excited to work on this that I'm a little stammery. I'm a little nervous. I worked on it and I'm really excited that we got to put it in tonight. So thank you so much for making all of my songwriter dreams come true. And until next time, we ask you guys to do 3 things every single time. Number 1, stay safe. Number 2, be brave. Number 3, evolve daily. And if you can do those 3 things and remember to wish Kevo a happy birthday, then I think we're super excited to see you Wednesday, where we're going to be talking, I think, Teak, we talking about Gang War on Wednesday?
Talking about Gang War on Wednesday.
We're ready.
Gang War, Wednesday.
Gang War.
Yeah.
Ants.